financials, basically, a lot of these graphs, when you talk about government-wide for the county, it's just like a regular, like a business. So you're basically booking all your fixed assets, you're booking your debt. So government-wide is more of a comparison to what you would consider a typical business. With all your fixed assets booked, everything's booked. Fund side is really cash in, cash out more. So we'll focus more on the government-wide side. In graph number 4, this gives you really, again, this is government-wide, so this includes all your fixed assets, your pension. You do book your pension account. You just don't book your OPEB, which is retirement. But you can look at the blue graph, really what happened between 21 and 22. Your assets went up significantly, $6 million. And a lot of that really relates back to your pension. Because what happened was all these pension adjustments, they're done by actuaries that are heck of a lot smarter than I am in Austin or somewhere that do these actuary calculations. So they'll go in and book a liability or an asset based on where they're at, you know, what they estimated, did they miss that mark? Then you have these deferred inflows and outflows, is what you also see on that balance sheet. But what happened was this, and they're always a year behind. So basically they're basing it on 21, and you can think back, what was the market in 21? It was pretty strong. So what happened, the prior year you had a liability of $1.7 million. This year you have an asset of nearly $6 million. So that was a huge swing with that pension. And that flows through all your financials too on the government-wide side. So when we get to the income statement, you'll see that. If you want to look at the actual financial on the big report, this is on page 14, is really what we're dealing with right now. There's lots and lots of numbers I know in those reports, so we'll try to kind of focus in on a few pages. And really 14, 15, and 16 of the main report, that's your government-wide financials that these graphs really will kind of relate to. The other things that changed on the asset side, we talked about the pension. You had some capital asset, about a net of about $500,000, because you know what you put on, it's also depreciated. And really the majority that was put on this year was related to the roof replacement. Because I believe in 21, was it 20? Yeah, 21 you had some hail damage. And it's real tricky when you have these involuntary conversions. It's strange. You book a gain right up front once you get the proceeds or what you know you're going to get. So basically, you had a gain in 21 of $1 million, and 22 is when you actually have the replacement. So it's kind of different how it flows, especially for your fund statement. You think about it. So you had this bump up last year, or in 21, and 22 you had to spend the money. So it kind of flows through those fund balances like that, cash in and cash out. But government-wide, it's more consistent. So you had some of that. As far as what you bought in your other, like in your business type, I think you had an ambulance purchase in the EMS service, and you also had, I think, the turbo mower on the golf course. That was like 120,000. The ambulance was closer to, I think it was over 200. Those are expensive. And then the other, you have some irrigation work you're working on too at the golf course, about 179,000 at year end. So that's the other. That's really all the significant things you had in the fixed asset side or your capital assets was most of it related back to the roof replacement. And then how that roof too works, you think about it too. Well, you have this gain when you get the insurance, and really you need to write off the old stuff too. So you see some loss this year, loss on sale. It really wasn't loss on sale. You're really getting rid of that old roof stuff and then putting on the new stuff. So it all kind of nets together, and you spent over a little over $2 million, I think, in roof replacement in total between the years. It just crossed years, so that was a little bit of a challenge as far as how that was accounted for. Also in 21 too, you had, I think it was Cody Wind, it was a little over $1 million, so you had a significant event then as well that you didn't have this year. So a lot of that kind of affects everything. As far as the liability side, one thing we did change too this year, you had a new standard that came into play in GASB 87, and it deals with leases. And you think back, y'all have always had capital leases. I think you have 3 motor graders, a compactor, and now you have the turbo mower, I think is a lease, on the golf course. But you had a lot of copiers, and that was really what GASB 87 affected. And what it said basically was, okay, we used to just have to disclose those leases if it's an operating lease. Now the standard makes you book an asset and liability. Because the thought process is, well, you've really got the right to use that asset for so many years. So you've got, whatever it is, 5 years on that copier, and that's what it's called, right of use asset. And you basically have a corresponding liability that's the same amount. So it really washes with those operating leases. Does that make sense? The capital leases y'all are already familiar with. So we did, I think we had like 15 copier leases, or yeah, but you can imagine every department has a copier. That's the main thing we're seeing at the counties is copiers, postage. Another thing to think about, or if you got, and I mean, if you lease some buildings too, just something to consider. It doesn't really affect your fund balance or your net assets, but it will show up on the balance sheet. The other thing we talked about, you don't have a pension liability any longer. And one thing on page 14, in those deferred inflows, this is kind of tricky, but that increased about $4 million. And what that is that's inflows that are gonna flow in the county over the next few years. And what that really relates back to is that actuary said, okay, we're gonna make, here's what we're expecting the fund to make as far as the pension fund. And it actually did a whole heck of a lot better. So you've got this deferred inflow that's gonna flow into the county over the next 3 years. So we know 12/31/22 is not as good in the market as 12/31/21, so we would expect that pension asset probably to decrease some, but it should be offset somewhat by that deferred inflow flowing in to kind of offset those funds. I mean, it's not a true liability or asset that the county owes today. It's really the long term. Basically, you're paying your minimum payments, those TRS payment, or that you're good. As long as you cover those, you're covered as far as the whole plan. So, a lot of people ask that, and how all the actuary works. I mean, it goes all over the place. When the markets move a lot, you see those pension numbers move quite a bit. To be honest, you can imagine how hard it would be to kind of guess at it. And then as far as what debt you got left, you basically got two certifications, 17 and 21. They both relate back to law enforcement academies or center that you built. And I think 21 was actually refied. So you had a refi on that. I want to say it's a little close to 10 million, both of those together. So that decreased about 700,000 this year. And then you had some small decrease too on your leases. You added one and some others got paid, but overall, and then also your ARP grants. I think we just talked about that. That's about $3.2 million. How we're showing that is unearned revenue. So as you spend those funds, that will then come out of that unearned caption. So you've got quite a bit sitting there, but again, if you go over 750, we need to make sure we're ready for a single audit once that happens. So now, I think you've got till 2024 even to spend those. It's a ways out. I believe you got some leeway on that, and it's a little different on which, I mean, it's pretty, there's a lot of things you can spend it on, is what I say. Just make sure you're on track with some of those. A couple of these other graphs I'll kind of go over. Graph number 5, and this deals with your business type activities, okay? So you've got 4, right? You've got EMS service, you've got the golf course, Herbley Waterworks, and the airport. So, and really how y'all always try to manage that, I think, is to basically just stabilize that your net assets in it. So basically you're funding it with property taxes as needed. I think this year, if you look at all those business type activities, I think it netted about 104,000. I think last year was right at 140. So again, it's basically a minimal effect for the county overall. Once, other than the funds you're having to use to shore up those operating losses. But services are needed for the county. The EMS is expensive. I think that piece, and as well as the airport. So, but you can see your assets really don't move much. It did go up $1.1 million this year, and that was again pension. So basically, part of that pension relates back to these business type activities, where the employees are housed.
And
So,
actually for that, we've never booked the pension into the enterprise funds, and it was something that we probably should have done initially when we implemented GASB 68, but the majority of payroll is paid out of the general fund. But this year, Aaron wanted us to go ahead and get it into those enterprise funds, since that's why you're seeing such a big increase this year.
it was much more material effect, really, Val.
With that big.
Need to get it in the right place, yeah.
So,
And the debt, really, you don't have a lot of liability sitting over there. You got the leases. You got 2 leases, I think, on that side, and you added the turbo motors, so that was really a lot of the change for this year. So I'm gonna go through all these. If you look at graph 6, and if you look at graph 6 and also open to page 15 on the audit, I think I can maybe work through some of these. 'Cause there's a lot of changes, and if you look at page 15, this is the double facing page on the left. You know, the one thing you see is you start out really with the expenses, and if you look at those expenses, you can't see the number. I've got the number here, but last year those expenses were right at $19.8 million. So I'm all the way to the left of that expense column. And this year they're 14.5. We said, well, what happened? Well, a lot of what happened was the pension. We just talked about it went from 1.7 million to 5 million positive, so that has to flow through somewhere. And basically, it's allocated to those activities, I think, based on where the salaries are. But you did also had $1.2 million of roof repairs, right, that flowed through at some point more on the fixed asset side, and also you had less road maintenance this year, about $1 million. So you had quite a bit less in expenditures. Now, if the next 2 columns over, these are program revenues. So that's, what would you charge for that specific service, and also grants. One thing you had was, I think maybe that Cody ran through this piece last year. So you had $1 million less up here in that road maintenance piece. And also in operating grants, last year you had some COVID funds that you didn't get this year, and a tech stock grant as well. So you had some decreases there, but they were, we expected those based on what happened with your grants and everything. Then on page 16, it kind of flows on over, and really you get to that total almost next to the last column on the right, that $11.3 million. That's what's funded basically with property tax, sales tax, and any other revenues you have. And you can see it's quite a bit less than last year. Last year's 14.8, this year is 11.3. And then you get down to the bottom of the page, general revenues and transfers, again on the right page. You can see that comparison between property tax, between the years, and sales tax. Sales tax actually increased quite a bit this year. You can see that, and that's going to just fluctuate with usage each year. The other changes, really, you see investment earnings that with rates being pretty good rates now, you're starting to see that really impact counties. And also your cash is $17 million. So you got, part of that is those ARP funds that have flowed through the last couple of years. So your cash is in the highest position I think it's probably ever been as far as just cash the county has. So that affects, when your rates are pretty good, that affects you. Now that miscellaneous line, it's 1.146 this year. Last year was 2 million. That's where that gain on that involuntary conversion related to the hailstorm is going to flow. And you can see it decreased quite a bit. So that's a lot of that decrease is related back to that gain. Any questions on that so far? I kind of blasted through a lot of that. There's just a lot going on. The point is the net position increased nearly $3 million. As you look at a lot of these activities, the pension, everything else. So to be quite honest, it was a good year to have that pension asset come into play when you had other things like the hailstorm and other stuff you had to fund. But overall, so your net position increased nearly $3 million. Now, again, next year we don't know what the pension will do, so it may we don't know. We'll see how it works out with the actuaries. As far as fund balance was, it decreased, think almost $2 million, I can't remember, but again, that's cash in, cash out. It depends on when that flows. Once that $3 million of ARP, if any of that flows in is operating, that should increase that fund balance. So something maybe to consider when y'all are, looking at those funds. You got quite a bit sitting there. And I believe if any of those, I believe they can be used for operating, is that correct? So those could be utilized for operating needs. And if that's the case, that I think how that would work accounting wise, it might just increase the fund balance, I think it would. Because it would be less funds you have to use that you budgeted for, property taxes, et cetera, sales tax. But I know y'all are considering all options with everything going on. I think I have a lot of other, not a lot of other new stuff. There is some other, what's the new standard? 96 is, what does it do?
So it deals with subscription-based
yeah,
information
subscription-based,
technology agreement. So this is anything that y'all utilize that's like cloud-based, like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, anything that y'all pay for that is like a subscription that you're never going to own. They want us, in accounting to book on now, similar to GASB 87, which was the lease standard. So they're all gonna be operating, essentially, we'll book an asset and a right to use that liability for both sides. So it really won't
Same
affect your net
concept.
position, but it'll just have an asset and a liability that we're tracking, for those subscription-based assets that y'all be using. And I think Angela and I had already talked about it, and so, every department's probably gonna have different ones, and so she's gonna get those for us, and, we'll implement that next
Still
year.
a lot more to track. It seems like they're just adding more and more things to track, and which is great. It just takes more time for y'all, I know, but we really appreciate it. I know it was a sudden change from Aaron, so.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate, I know we've done the work for a long time, and we appreciate it, so, and y'all can feel free to call us anytime that y'all need anything. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Judge Hicks, can I ask a clarification point? I want to make sure that I don't heard something correctly. I believe you referred to page 15 and 16, and you showed that we had a net income of 11.3 million, but we had net expenses of just over 14 million, which is, am I clear that that's not being realized necessarily on the proverbial bottom line, and that's purely because of the $5 million increase in the pension fund? So truly, we were short of the pension fund, should market conditions have had flowed as typically expected,
Right.
we actually would have realized a $3 million loss last year on our net operating.
No, I think you probably.
Well,
could
the asset,
have been,
so I
maybe.
think what it was, the asset changed went to 6 million. So it went from a liability to an asset, but there's also other factors, like the
Your
deferred
deferred
inflows
inflows
and
and
deferred
outflows.
outflows. So the outflow is essentially an asset, but the inflow is essentially a liability. And so whenever you net all those together, that's the expense or the income. So this year there was income, but I'm not sure if it was necessarily $6 million. It's
No,
just the net of
Because your
those
inflows
changes.
increase.
If we just excluded that entire scenario from a just cash in, cash out, from an operating income and an operating expense, we realized 11.3 of income and 14 million of expense. Short
Well,
of,
that includes the pension adjustment in some of those numbers. There's also
It does.
non-operating revenues, which include the ad valorem and some other factors. So if you look at those 2 pages, you can kind of break down what is what. The pension,
Yeah, you have
income expense is
about
broken down
14.
between governmental and the enterprise funds, which is the airport and the EMS and golf course and stuff. So it's kind of split between all of those, so it's gonna be hard to like pick that pension adjustment number, whether it was income or expense. So last year was expense, this year was an income, but it's not just the change in the asset and liability, it also includes those deferred inflows and outflows, and I don't know those exact numbers, but.
That's right, because your inflows went up, they increased $4 million, so you kinda gotta take that into effect too, cause those liabilities just increased $4 million, so that offsets part of that pension adjustment.
So probably a better, page to look at would be the fund balance, the fund statements, like that have, each fund separate from so we're looking at government-wide, the numbers that you're using are government-wide numbers, which include assets, liabilities. The cash in, cash out is more on the next several pages that include the general fund, road and bridge is separated, and then, I don't think that there's any other major funds in there, all the other non-majors are combined, and then the enterprise funds have their own statement. And so you can see those cash in, cash out balances that are more indicative without having to include the pension stuff, because those aren't really truly assets or liabilities. And so it's hard to, we focus on the government wide because your assets really aren't an expense, but on the fund statements, you expense them in the year you purchase them. So that's the difference between those two statements. So it gets kind of tricky to like compare. So really just looking at year to year is probably a better indicator than trying to pull out that pension piece, because
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to.
Thank y'all so much, we appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
This year.
Thank y'all, appreciate it.
All in favor? Board to discuss and consider upgrades to Tyler Technology. Jeff, you just
Well, the department had several questions on it. I discussed this with you on what the deal was, so.
And I've taken the liberty of going ahead and invite Tyler Technologies here to discuss this. Since there's gonna be limited information from me, so Jeffries and Tyler, I didn't get your, Tyler with Tyler. So, they're gonna, kind of give us a rundown of where things are, what we've got going on.
So we came, Tyler from Tyler, everybody, let's internalize that. So we came down because we heard there was some, potential question around upgrading, the enterprise justice implementation that we're currently doing for the court system here. So really, we don't quite know what that means, it's ambiguous to us. So we do just want to provide clarification around, initially, an upgrade to the system. As some of you may know, the county clerk and district clerk offices here in Scurry County have partnered with the Texas OCA to subsidize a portion of the implementation and the software as a service fees that come with the software post go live and maintaining the servers that come with that. And I'm the program manager over that at Tyler Technologies, so I work directly with the OCA, okay? As a part of this implementation with the OCA, Scurry County is getting the full software suite. There is no corners cut in that. So every other county, even the major counties in Texas have the same software that Scurry County is getting. The only difference is that it's in partnership with the Texas OCA, and Scurry County would be sharing party data, meaning people data, across counties. Meaning that John Doe in Scurry County is John Doe in Upton County, same person, okay? So the system is fully capable to meet all of the standard Texas legislative needs and requirements. It's the same thing that counties like Bexar County get, Dallas County get, Collin County, even Midland County out here. If anything, there is a limited scope that comes with the UCMS data conversion, okay? So UCMS is short, an acronym term for the Unified Case Management System. And that's just the term that this Texas OCA has given it, according to the legislature, okay? So again, I'm working with the OCA to implement that UCMS system. And the only thing that is limited in scope is that data conversion, and there were technical requirements that we had to meet to accommodate data conversion for multiple counties across, across the state of Texas, coming from various other case management softwares. So again, I would like to reiterate that the software suite is as full as any other county in the state of Texas is getting. The only thing that is limited is a data conversion. And I do believe, and I would like to add a clarification on that. What is limited in the data conversion is just the function of the data within the software. All data is going to be converted. We do not convert data. That the data is the county's to own. We're never gonna say, no, you're not allowed to convert that data, okay? It's just a matter of, excuse me, where you put it in the system. We make a large chunk of it read-only, so that it can be audited, and that it can always be reviewed, okay? We're not going to convert data. So with that being said, I know there were questions about, the scope of the implementation and some, clarifications that were needed or wanted. So I open the floor to you if you have questions about that.
One thing I'm curious about, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Does that answer any of y'all's questions? I mean, y'all have questions, ask them. I mean, that's why we got everybody here. If y'all don't understand it, cause I don't deal with it, so.
If there was limited conversion and some was only read only, I wish that would have been told to us at the sales pitch in this room, what, a year ago? Year and a half ago? I wish we would have known that then instead of finding out last week. That's my issue. I feel very misled.
Okay. Well, I can't,
Didn't know a thing about the 15-digit case number either. I wish some of those things would have been told to us in the sales pitch, not a month before we go live.
well, on the case numbering had not been set at the time the contract was signed, because we were still in
I didn't
implementation.
have anything to do with the signing of the contract, and I realize that's not a question for y'all, that's more to Commissioner's Court. But I did not see
If
the
they didn't know at
contract.
the time, we didn't know at the time.
Okay, but I did not see the contract when it was signed or before it was signed. Didn't have a clue it was even signed until we started, all the computer meetings. And like I said, that's not y'all, that's really more in county.
Okay. Well, I can't speculate as to what was discussed during the sales process because we're part of the implementation team, so I was not a part of the sales process, but that limited conversion scope is what has been contracted with every county that's opted into the UCMS program, and I will leave it at that.
Well, I'm aware that the Tyler is making every effort to, they're helping, they're doing everything they can. Do y'all see that there is more that can be done, or are you doing everything?
In regards to the data conversion?
Yeah, we're worried about warrants and finances primarily.
Sure, so I'll speak on both of those actually. So on the warrants, we have, agreed to work with Scurry County on the current active warrant load to do a push of those warrants into the system so that the records are there in their respective homes where they would likely live in the software going forward. So we have deviated slightly from scope of the warrants initially to accommodate Scurry County, considering Scurry County honestly is our largest population-wise county, a part of UCMS, so the volume is there to merit wanting to do that. And there's also the added layer that Scurry County has added the jail to the scope of the implementation. Those warrant records are essential to jail function. So we understand the need for that as well. So we have compromised on that. We're gonna push those warrants in. We're gonna convert them as inactive for liability purposes, because we don't have a true system of record to know what is inactive versus active, but we are pushing them in. Those records will be provided to everyone that they impact, county, district, clerks, and the jails and the sheriff's office. As far as the financials, there's technical problems that come with converting financials fully, in terms of server capability and database capability. I won't dive into all of that, but there were technical decisions made up front very early on to state and to proceed without converting financial data to its respective home within the software suite. The gist of that is, if we were to convert the financial data to its respective home, there is potential that we break the database for every county because of the technical restraint that puts on the application, okay? And that comes with any case management software, okay? This is a unique situation that there are multiple counties in Texas living in this environment, coming from multiple systems, other systems that are not the enterprise justice software, okay? That's unique, that is unique to something that we're doing in Texas, and with that comes some technical constraints. So, with that being said, we are and have heard the heartburn that comes with converting that financial data as read-only, okay? Again, I want to reiterate that the financial data is going to be there, it's going to be audited. We spoke with the county auditor about that this morning. What we are doing is Tyler Technologies is going to take ownership of a portion of managing that financial data post go live, okay? And what that means is we are going to work with Scurry County to do some of the financial assessments for outstanding balances only, not payments. We take no ownership or liability of assessing payments and or transacting payment data. We will assess outstanding balances, and we are also working on custom reporting to allow for auditing purposes to produce, 2023 data and anything before that from the read-only fields to make it to where the data is a little more digestible after the fact.
So will that still, put the responsibility back on the offices to do this more manual input of the financial situation?
The effort that we're looking at, it's a prioritization of cases that have had payment on them within a reasonable date range, i.e., looking at the data, we'd have to determine the date range we'd want to look at for Scurry County. Off the top of my head, I would say 3 years worth of cases that have had recent payment data on them. And Tyler Tech would take responsibility of assessing the outstanding balances on those cases to allow for payments to be processed on them in the very near future. The reason we're doing that is because the way we view it is those cases are not considered stale and are actively being collected on, just based on their most recent payment data.
Does that also include registry of the court?
If we can be provided the registry of the court information, we can produce a listing of those cases to get the current balance of those registries. Again, we can't recreate the financial transaction history that would have to live on the conversion.
Okay,
As
see, that puts a huge liability back on me as the clerk. I've got over $300,000 sitting in the registry of the court that I'm responsible for. It doesn't belong to the county, doesn't belong to me, belongs to other people's here in the county or in the state. And that's a lot of responsibility to put back on an office with 4 people in it, 5 people in it.
Respectively, if you can provide the accounts in which the money is sitting in and the parties, that is something we can entertain walking through with you.
I appreciate that, thank you.
I really do not, I have not taken any issue with Tyler. I took a huge issue with IDOT. I think they were crap. Plain and good, and that's not y'all's fault. We can't plant weeds and expect time. Y'all are doing the best you can with what you've got to work with. We chose a very bad software program 3 years ago. I wish that in the preparation for the conversion, the offices that were directly affected would have been called in by that table right there for input.
During the sales meeting, all officers were in the sales meeting.
The sales meeting was very different from that contract. That contract is specific, and it was written completely. Sales meetings are not contracts.
In the sales meeting, I specifically asked the sales lady if Tyler had done, iDocket conversions, and she stated, yes, y'all had. And I asked the question, was there any major issues, and she stated that there was no major issues in the past. So we assumed, which is our problem, that everything would be smooth here and that everything would be converted. Just like when we went from Tyler to iDocket, everything converted, and other offices had problems. I can tell you the district clerk's office has been pretty smooth under iDocket. And so I'm really disappointed that everything won't convert, including especially probably the financials, going from iDocket back to Tyler.
Well, again, the data's converted, we're not converting. It's
I
a ma-
understand, but
it's a
it's
matter
not
of putting it
complete
into
conversion,
perspective.
it's not
Plus.
going to where it needs to be in the computer.
But, again, we are looking through the data and combing through it to get the data into a place that would be more consumable for Scurry County at Go Live.
And
By
I think
Tyler
our question
doing-
is there an upgrade? When we talk about upgrades and that type of thing, is probably language we learned when we were on Tyler in the past. Is there an upgrade that we could have purchased or could still be purchased that would have helped with this?
The data conversion or
Yes,
the software
data
application?
conversion.
Okay. If you wished to have had a premium data conversion, meaning that you get full data conversion to the respective homes for that data in the application, you would have had to have been on your own standalone version of the software. You could not have participated in the UCMS
So
program.
it cannot be added to.
No. Not for UCMS.
Okay.
I think that's where a lot of our confusion, cause I feel like us as a sheriff officer in the same boat is, we did not realize going forward with Tyler that we were going to be under a UCMS umbrella, to where we would be involved with other counties. So I think that's been a lot of our miscommunication and hiccups, is that we're used to operating as a standalone program,
Sure.
and now we're having to share information, and we're having to adjust our workflow and adjust how we operate in a lot of aspects. Had we known this a year and a half ago, we could have been prepared for it quicker than 2 weeks before we're supposed to go live.
Sure, so
I agree with that.
I have Jeff here, the project manager for Scurry County specifically. And I know Jeff has been communicating for at least the past 7 months, the scope of the project with Scurry County. And again, I can't speculate as to what happened in the sales process, but I can also state that in the contract, there is language that, that aligns, with adopting some of the, rules, if you will, of the master services agreement that was signed with the Texas Office of Court Administration. So, as far as internal communication, I can't control any of that. I can only address what we have here in this room, and I know, my project manager, Jeff, has been doing his due diligence as well as the other team members to communicate the direct scope of the project for Scurry County. I understand your all's frustration, but I trust my team that they've been, been communicating it as effectively as they can.
I agree. I completely agree. Y'all have done exactly what you should be doing, what you could be doing. It's an internal problem. It is an internal problem. It is Scurry County's problem. It's that table right there, and I'm not being ugly. We were not adequately informed, and we were the ones who were. Yes, we have been hindered, not by y'all, but by a lack of communication from Commissioners Court. The little bit of conversation that I have had with commissioners regarding this is they were not advised either. No one saw the contract, and I think that's very unfortunate. People who were affected by it, I almost said impacted, were, I mean, we've been hauled. Y'all hurt us, y'all really did hurt us.
I do have to say that the contract was not signed just by one person, or not agreed upon by one person, it was signed by me. However, it did come through Commissioner's Court, and if they didn't look at it,
Was it made available?
it has to be made available. If it's a public record, it has to be made available.
Everybody who saw
Any
the
contract
contract,
we have
raise your
has to be
hand.
signed, has to come through Commissioner's Court. So, I didn't see the aspect where the different things weren't converged. I told him just that I'll accept that. But, that's where we are now. I apologize for anything that I missed. don't know how to fix that at this point.
Well, we can't fix it at this point.
It's gonna take overtime to fix it, basically,
Okay.
because it's gonna go back on your deputies and your clerks to fix what's happened here. I realize there's a fix in place that is happening, but until I see it myself, I can't really say how good of a fix, and so I still have to assume that I'm going to have to fix financials in over 1,000 cases and registry in over 84 different cases. And
I
can
have
do that
data
alone.
to back up that it's way less than 1,000 on the district clerk's office.
Okay, that's just my pending cases.
The data I am looking at specifically on criminal,
Well, criminal is my smallest as far as financials go. There's attorney general, there's family, there's civil, and then there's registry of the court. Most people pay their criminal fees through CFCD if they're on probation, and of course, if they go to prison, I get a little payment, but it's very tiny.
on non-criminal, I believe that through the e-file Texas system, it is required that the fees are paid up front on those cases, is that not?
For a new filing, unless they're at my counter, or they're paying into the registry of the court. Right at this moment, I am getting probably anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 a month into the registry of the court.
I understand the registry of the court, and again, if it's 84 cases,
Cat
that's
is
a
a whole
matter of,
different color.
if it's 84 cases, that's a very minimal effort to get the outstanding, or the current balance of those registry accounts added to the system.
I understand how you can say that, you have a vast amount of employees. I have 5 of us.
We have, on our project team specifically, we have no more than 15 at any given time. I don't have the disposal of
3
the
times
entire
as many
company.
as I have. I
But-
think
but
at this
again,
moment, what I'm looking at is overtime for my staff to actually go into every case and touch it and make sure that, I'm understanding from the auditor that 2023 needs to be,
I did speak to him already, and we've got a plan, and I will cover it with you after
Okay.
the meeting. He came to my office before the court, and we've got something planned out for that, so
Okay. So not every transaction.
yes, but it's, I'll have to explain it to you. It's a drawn out process, but I will explain it to you, and it will be them providing it, where it's not gonna be, you having to do a bulk entry.
Okay. So multiple entry, at any rate, it's going to still take my staff to actually do the work behind it.
I don't think so.
Okay. You think it's gonna convert or patch or whatever?
And it will be much simpler than what,
We had originally
yes,
talked about?
yes. And much less time consuming.
Okay, good.
Okay, one question for the court. Will there be a client service contract signed after we leave conversion status? So that when we need help with the software, we can contact Tyler at no additional cost.
Do you all mind if I answer that? Yes, it's included. You have as of right now, you have 2 dedicated support resources, because you have signed up for UCMS. You get lack of a better term, you get special treatment.
And that will go across everybody,
Yes.
and not specific to just the clerk's office.
Anybody that's in the UCMS instance of the software.
And it's more than a portal, correct?
Correct.
I just have a question. If the county were to go away from the USMS, sorry,
Marine Corps.
UCMS, what does that cost look like if they were to get their own custom program and not be under the
A
umbrella?
lot more expensive.
Like, what does that look like range wise?
It'd be in the millions for a new implementation. And the software as a service fees that come with that.
And that's
Cumulative.
annual, not just a one-time fee.
The implementation services would be one time, and then the software as a service is, the recurring.
And that's what I would assume, like your Midland County and Dallas County, they have their own custom.
Yes.
We have, gone to IDOC with
afford the updates that were required to keep our server going, to keep our original Odyssey that we had from, I think, '07 to 19 or something like that. And so we had to look for different options. And so then we did that option, and now we're looking at UCMS because it is hugely discounted and supposed to be the same standard.
And UCMS was not available
At that time.
The other issue is with iDocket is that they started out gangbusters and faded off through time. They lost everybody that they had that worked for them at one time who knew what was going on as far as governments go, as far as court systems go. And just, we've had issues with them for the last, at least 2 years in all offices, I think, except Candy. Candy said she's had great service with them, but all the other offices have just been a nightmare, as far as I understand.
I had great service with Tyler before we left. The only problem was is we needed to upgrade our server and we didn't have the money to do that. We needed to be able to support e-file, which was mandated by the state.
Did you get that out of the box with UCMS? Because the servers are hosted by us.
Well, one of the many things that should have happened was, according to the contract that was signed with Tyler, is a steering committee. And that was, to my knowledge, never created. There should have been people designated to review not only the contract, but what was happening in each phase. Because every time we closed a phase, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there are 6 phases to this conversion process. Every time we closed a phase, if we didn't take issue with something in phase 1, but we allowed phase 2 to begin, it closed phase 1, and we couldn't go back to take issue with anything that had happened in phase 1. And that continued throughout, and then we get to phase 6, and we find out that things aren't gonna be functioning the way we need them to, not y'all's fault, because you cannot take bad information, and get good out of it. As we were doing data review, I noticed there were things that weren't functioning, but I believed out of ignorance that once we got to the actual conversion, completion, and go live, that those things would come, they would, basically the flower would open and everything would be there. Not realizing that the limitations we were seeing in the early data review were gonna be this, pretty much the same limitations at go live. I know that there's, documents and things like that that will be accessible, but had there been better communication with the offices that were impacted by this conversion, we could have taken issue in the earlier phases and we wouldn't be scrambling to accomplish.
If I'm not mistaken, at the beginning, didn't we set up in each office, someone, a contact in each office?
Yeah, we've had the bi-weekly status
And we've
meetings.
had bi-weekly status meetings on all
Included
that,
in that
where any of these issues could have been brought up at any time.
Absolutely. And we've had, in the status report, we actually produce every 2 weeks a list of the milestones that have those 6 phases documented as well.
Yes, I agree, that is true. What we lacked was not from y'all. What we lacked was understanding and inclusivity of the limitations that we were facing. What we lacked, quite frankly, was the 100 pages of the contract that was signed. None of us were shown this contract, because if a clerk can read this contract and figure out that the warrants are not going to convert the way that we need them to, we could have seen that in phase one.
And started waving our hands.
That's
then.
right, we could have been more prepared for what we're fixing to be slain by.
Respectively, in the early phases, there's an observation period called the current and future state analysis, which is a fancy term for, we work with you to observe what you guys do. There has always been an open line of communication at each one of these phases, and to discuss the scope of, the data conversion and or the configuration of the system. I think that there is, at some point, there seemed to have been miscommunication and understanding. I don't know where that came from, but I do know my team and the way the project has been set up in the phases, there is always opportunity to communicate about any quote-unquote issues that you may encounter to be reported to my team, to be reviewed and or discussed. So there is a two-way communication street there. I would like to emphasize that.
And I think reading things on SharePoint and actually seeing it on a computer or a big screen is two different things. So I might read something and think it's this, but when I actually see it up there, like during training, totally different. And then I go, oh, wait, I sort of remember this, but, I may not have answered it correctly in the SharePoint booklet.
Yeah, I wondered about that too.
Yeah, I think
I would.
for future reference for y'all, the more sight that you can give versus reading would be much better for your future clients. That would have happened with us.
I think I made too many assumptions. I think so. And that's not
I
y'all's
think
fault.
it's easy to look at during testing and go, wow, my financials are not here. But I mean, that is just so basic that it's real easy to go, oh, but surely they'll be there by the end.
That's exactly.
Surely we haven't reached that point yet, that's why it's not here.
Because it's unfathomable to think that those financials are not gonna be so that I can handle them, and those warrants so that I can handle them once we go live. That just doesn't even compute, because that's the whole point of the software. We're in a spot, y'all.
I will say, we're actively working, the sheriff's office is actively working on all the outstanding warrants that we have, so I'll be sending everybody a list on those. And Kevin's been doing great working with us as far as trying to get that process fixed and what that looks like. We're trying to kind of scramble to get it done before go live, but we're actively working on it. And then at go live, from my understanding, the date of go live, we have to manually, physically go back through every single warrant again and reactivate it in the system, so.
And then we have to get that list from y'all, and we have to activate it on our.
The warrant is the warrant.
Yeah.
It's shared across the system.
Yeah, good, I'm glad to hear that, because we honestly thought that we were gonna have to do that.
Yeah, no,
So we've been pulling lists out, I don't get left and right, because another issue that we're trying to anticipate, every time throughout the day, as we're just doing normal activities, this is not a Odyssey problem, this is an iDocket problem, the software just shuts down. We just get a red screen, one day, my screen just turned black, everything just went away. My fear is that when we go live, iDocket is gonna flip that switch, and we are gonna lose tons and tons and tons of data.
That's not gonna happen. iDocket's gonna stay, as backup until we need them not to.
I wouldn't trust that. Any question on that?
What's your question, Ms. Sonny?
Can Kirsten verify that things are gonna be backed up 100%?
She has
She
nothing to do
cannot,
with
she
it.
had an issue with backups of, what, a year ago, where she lost
That
everything?
has nothing to do with
Yes,
the
it
treasurer's
does.
office.
that was our financial software, so different softwares on that one, it was new
still lost everything, that it was not backed up, y'all better make sure y'all.
We can't back up, there's not a backup, there's not.
Alright,
it doesn't
so-
exist.
Tyler backs up if I'm correct, is that correct?
Yeah, and we will have an instance of the IDOC database that you have to provide to us to convert the data at go live. There will always be a backup that Tyler has.
Okay,
There was backup, no matter what.
You're backing up what you're converting, including the IDOC back.
I mean, it's not necessarily considered a backup, it's just stored on our server for, I just don't know, I can't get too technical with it, I lose people time. We have what's, in our production database, we have what's called failover.
Is it gonna include documents? See, we're
Yes.
paperless.
It's all backed up.
It's all gonna be there.
Yep.
Well, that helps tremendously. You'll notice that Tyler is the one who's guaranteeing that, because I guarantee you, I don't get connected. I guarantee.
I agree with you.
They do.
I will say, she did put it in writing, not that that is worth a lot, but it is in writing that they will have it available until we don't need them anymore, so there is a legal aspect to that as well. Cause she responded to both, the county judge and myself in writing, saying that she would ensure that we have it until we don't.
Well, and at this point, my jury package with Tyler Technologies looks like it's lagging into next year. And so I will have to have the jury package in iDocket until I can get the Tyler uploaded.
We can do that.
Well, I would like to make a request of the court. I don't know about any other department, but from the point of view, and I feel like I speak for the judge when I say this, the next time y'all sign a contract that involves JP2, better request Judge Webb. I think that's only fair.
Thank you. Anything else?
So now we know that there's no money that we can spend to fix the problem, we're just gonna have to. We've done it.
After speaking to Tyler earlier, I can tell you 100% that they are doing everything
doing
they can do,
They
to
are.
get our data and to make it work for us. So, I mean, they're accommodating us in ways that they probably wouldn't do in other counties that hadn't had to do in the past. So it's a new problem for them, just like it's a new problem for us. We can't go back and change anything, we just have to look at the future to fix it and just pray that it works out, and we look at it with a positive outlook instead of it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work.
It will work, it's
Just
just gonna
having
take a
that
lot of work.
outlook, it's not gonna help.
Right.
So, I will say, they've been very accommodating, very helpful. He was very reassuring. I feel a lot better about the financial aspect because of the audits. After speaking with him, this morning, it may be a little bump in the road for a minute, but, I mean, we've had bumps, so we can do it.
We've had a bump that's lasted 3 years, and I don't.
I would
Yes.
just
That's been a 3-year bump.
also like to point out, we are the largest county on this free version, or this UCMS version. So that should also tell Commissioners Court a lot, because Tyler Technologies is the foremost supplier of services to the state of Texas on the judicial side, which means counties much bigger than us are using them.
Yeah.
But they're not on this version.
What's the next size? Like, you said Scurry County's the largest, what would be your second largest county?
I
If you were-
believe it's Leon County, and I don't know your population, so I'm saying that based on population. Population and volume are two different things, in terms of the data. I'm pretty sure it's Leon County or it's Easton County. You three are, those three counties are the high population density ones.
Well, thank y'all for being here and thank you for what you're doing. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's move to court to consider accepting donations to county by the Yankees.
Do you have one?
Library.
He's closer, we're on the top of the
Alright, the library, donation, a total of $1,700. And the senior center, $35,973.
That was just the, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for that monthly total there. There's another one in the middle of the page for $13.50, and then the top, there's a 100, and then $7.50, so.
Well, wait a minute. Yep, we're moving.
3167.15.
That's what's on here, yes.
Whopper.
There's one more.
And the Scurry Center, $35,973.30 and $893. Alright.
Yes.
Make a motion. All in favor? Court consider approval of treasurer's monthly report for May 2023 and personnel information report.
Y'all have any questions?
My mind is blown. She's always goes back.
We did, I would like to note, we are seeing, this last month, we had the highest average in all of our bank accounts, investment pools. We saw about a 5% interest in those, so they still expect them to come down, but in the meantime, we will continue getting more interest income than we have seen in a very long time.
Court discuss and consider going out for bids on 2 senior center vans. Danny is replacing 2 of them, using some that they have, and, the other 2 ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
New ones in service, I need to get rid of the old ones.
Are they not on the buy board?
Pardon?
Or are they not on the buy board?
The 2 that we have to get rid of.
No, just get rid of.
She's already purchased them, and they were.
I'll make those 2.
Okay, make a motion to accept that we approve going out for bids for the 2 vans they're getting rid of. So it's interesting.
All in favor? We've got that at the office and we'll get that put out. Court to discuss and consider the extension, renewal, or modification of the indigent defense contract for both 132nd Judicial District Court and the Scurry County Court and items related thereto. We've spoken to all parties involved, both courts, both attorneys, and everybody is agreeable to renew the contract as has been, each contract as it has been. As you know, one is for county court, and one is for district court. The reason for that is when we approved to get one indigent defense attorney, nobody wanted to do both courts. We did have 2 attorneys, one wanted to do county, and one wanted to do district. And they cover for each other on occasion if they have a conflict.
Make a motion to approve the county and district court contract.
All in favor? Court to discuss and consider administrator and assistant jail administrator incentive fee. I'm gonna let Trey speak to this.
We just, something we haven't addressed over the years, it's with that position, actually those two positions, with our enforced staff like we have been, we're under budget, and we're getting back to where we need to be, but we're under budget as far as the money goes, so it's just an adjustment, it's a small adjustment for both of those positions on their salaries, but it is.
And you were talking about 5,000 administrator, for the administrator, and 2,500 for the assistant jail administrator, taking away 1,400.
Yes.
25.
Yeah.
Currently sergeants get 13. So
Okay.
as they change positions, the sergeant pay goes away and the new pay comes in. I also, like so many positions, they're seeing changes in requirements of paperwork, so they're needing more leadership staff, to take on the additional paperwork and changes that are going on in the jail system, in the sheriff's office currently.
And so these are leadership
Sure.
positions. The administrative assistant, that was, or is it administrative assistant?
That's the jail, in the jail.
Assistant jail administrator,
Okay,
and then there's an administrator. The
Okay.
administrator position, she's more over the jail and the dispatch.
same pay as dispatch, correct?
The
Yes.
jailers and dispatcher are on the same pay, base pay.
And the assistant jail administrator is on the same pay
Yeah,
as.
yes, and it's just a separate, because they have more duties, obviously, more responsibilities, so. But like I said, we've never addressed it before, we're just trying to get it cleaned up, so. Make it fair.
The issue I have, when they'll say, oh, don't do more, if we do, when we approve that, people are gonna explode. That's just the way we want to see it, I'm sorry. I didn't say they didn't deserve it, I didn't say that, but all of our employees deserve something like that, and you cannot give all our employees a raise.
So, full understanding, both these positions have more responsibilities
Absolutely.
than the current pay schedule. And like, the administrator's paid as a dispatcher, but has more responsibility.
Oversees all of this stuff, and all the administrative paperwork that goes with it.
So if they did take on the extra, administrative duties, they'd be getting paid somewhat what the rest of those folks that are in there doing the dispatching and not being
Correct.
supervisors would be getting.
And they currently are getting paid that way.
Yeah, and right now, that's what's happening.
And I understand that.
I mean, there's no doubt that there has been mistakes made by the court, by budgeting in the past. And that's something that, things like this need to be cleaned up and made right for what people are doing. What the responsibilities and their duties are, I believe. So you're actually not giving the total amount, not getting the total amount of that request, they're actually taking off a certain amount and then getting an additional for the different, places or the different duties of what's going on, what within positions.
On the assistant jail administrator. They go from 1,300 to 2,500.
Can I clarify something? Is the money in the 2023 budget currently?
Yes.
I definitely think they should get it. But I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say.
You've heard what I think, and I want y'all to understand, it's nothing against y'all. But it is gonna open up a can of worms we can't open it.
We just have to deal with inequities as they come up. That's the hard deal with what we do.
It is.
But if we continue to ask people to do additional duties without additional pay, we will continue to lose them to every community.
Well, and if he's done a great job to like keep his budget numbers down, then he should be able to reward his people within his budget, approved budget. He's not asking for more funds, he's asking, hey, I've done a great job, I've discounted some things here, can I give this to my people? Like, you've gotta appreciate
But the
your
problem
people.
is, in the county, you don't hire people, you hire positions.
But like you said too, like it's been years, right, since they've been looked at, right, for additional duties?
But that would be every department.
That's every
Yeah,
department.
see, none of us have been looked at.
For additional
No,
duties.
and I agree, I think every department should be looked at.
Well, but
Right,
then you
isn't
have
that part
people
of
who
it?
don't want that to happen because the budget increases.
But I have these people on call 24/7, because they're a boss. So they're subject to call at any day, time, night, weekend, holiday. I'm not taking away from anybody other county employees, but I'm asking these people to do a whole lot more than 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
That is
So,
true.
Wouldn't that be overtime?
Are they classified salary exempt or are they hourly employees?
hourly employees.
Jeff, Doug, you know?
I just know that we've got this pay schedule that we have. And we can all go through here and know that a lot of things are out of whack, and it's been out of whack for a while. But then again, you can't take one individual and reward them without rewarding other ones. I know me and Kirsten talked about, you know, getting an outside group or company to come in here and evaluate these. But I'm not gonna reward just one person at this time.
That makes me emotions. Because to me, it's like going from a sergeant to a lieutenant. You get a, you get raises. But then again, I feel like all employees need raises, and all of us too. I believe they do too. But, and that's the salary going from, in my opinion, from like a sergeant to a lieutenant. It's not really a stipend, it's just, I don't know what to call it. It's kind of like some of the deputies get hazard pay. You know, I mean, that's something that we've done recently in the recent past, for some of them. I know when I worked at the fire department, I went to a lieutenant, I got a raise. You know, the rest of the employees got one, and that's the reason, that they have more responsibility. But, like I say, I also agree that all our employees get raises. So, what's the fix? Can y'all talk about the additional duties that you have over and above what you have?
For my job, admin assistant, dispatch supervisor, and like you touched on, I'm on call 24/7, weekends, holidays, people call in. If I can't find coverage, then coverage is me. I essentially am the in-house HR for not just dispatch, but for the entire office. I work closely with Kirsten to make sure that we're operating correctly on FMLA, tracking sick, vacation, holiday time, making sure all of our staff has the proper training that they need to keep their license valid. New hire stuff, I'm the one pushing out information, trying to get new employees. Any documentation that they need, I'm working with the other offices to make that happen. civil paperwork. I'm working with outside courts, internal courts, to make sure that the paperwork is processed, payments are received, payments are followed up on, for tax suits that we can initially get payment on.
Working with jail commission, reports, different trainings, like she said.
And constantly helping IT when I can't make it over there.
Yeah,
Yeah, setting
we
up
have it
computers
where we're essentially doing, he's walking us through how to do it, because we can't remote in.
So why is it still on? When Joe was there.
It wasn't Joe, it wasn't the jail administrator, it was the SO administrator. It's never been addressed, that position, that's what this is Savannah's position. And then the assistant jail administrator, that was just always been, and it's like it is today, it's just been paid the same as a sergeant, but you touched on it, when I move somebody up, their responsibilities have just tripled, I mean, literally, because they're overseeing, helping her oversee the staff, the training, they're on call 24/7, it's just a lot more responsibility. I don't know why we had never addressed it in the past, I don't know. I don't know what it is, I don't know.
To be honest with Joe, remember when I stepped in the office and we had all those changes and all those adjustments that happened within the first 2 months that were fun? Previously, it went to the base pay. So Joe did receive an increase. I went back and through all the paperwork, but it went to the base pay. Therefore, one of the issues that I ran into in the office is when he had a sergeant step down from sergeant duties. What money did I take away? What was his new schedule, pay schedule? So that was one of the issues that I stepped into and worked around. So now it's on the incentive side instead of the base side. So it's an incentive. So when somebody steps down from their duties and no longer wants to be an administrator or a jail sergeant, then that pay goes away. So Joe's was a little different in the fact that he was on the old system. You can correct things going forward. Sometimes it's harder to go back and correct things and you just gotta work with them. So his was on the base pay, these other ones are on the incentive side. Savannah's position, the administrator is different, and the assistant jail administrator is a different incentive than what we have been doing. Joe was a jail administrator, not an assistant jail administrator.
In every other department that we have, well, including the sheriff's department, in every department that we have, if you step up to more responsibility, sometimes there's a title change. Generally, there's a title change and generally more pay goes along with that. I don't know why these two positions were never looked at, before, but I feel the same way, that if you have more responsibilities, you should be able to receive more pay and incentive in some way or another. I don't know why it wasn't addressed in the past. It should have been, because it is a step up, in my eyes, it's a step up. So, I mean, not just responsibilities of extra duties, but seniority and over other employees. So. I'd entertain a motion, or unless there's any other questions or thoughts.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we give the incentive pay to the jail administrator and assistant jail administrator. As proposed. And I hope we will do that study, because I believe everybody in this county does deserve a pay. I've been looking at that, and I know that it needs to be done, and I think that we should do it.
And I'll go ahead and second. same? All opposed? Court to discuss and consider license to place funds for books bought by the county and sold at the library book sale. This is something that came up recently, can you?
Yes, we were getting the library ready to go to the Square system for, book, the. For the book sale and stuff like that. So as we were doing that and entering it in, the book sale came up. Some of the items, when we buy the new books, they stay on the shelf for a long time. Olivia's here, she can tell you more about the weeding process, is what you call it, right? And when they take the books off, the court needs to just officially say, make a decision, yes or no. The court wants to then, once those books have lived its shelf life and they're no longer going to have them on the shelf and they weed them out, if they want to then donate them to the Friends of the Library for the book sale to, go when they sell them, then that revenue goes into their Friends of the Library bank account? Or does the court want to track those books, and when they're sold, then the portion, those books that were sold that were county bought books, not donated, because as you see, we accepted a list of donated books today, put those funds back into the general fund or put them into the Friends of the Library fund. That is the decision for the court to make, but we need an actual, something on the minutes to say that. Because as we've looked back, I have not been able to find anything that says that. It is a practice that had been done, but I haven't been able to find the minutes that said that it could have been done previously.
Sure. But not by this point.
No.
Olivia, is there anything you'd like to add?
It's just clarification, like she said, and ways to possibly provide materials.
Right.
How we would keep donated items separated from county bought items, and I think that's gonna be the biggest issue.
Okay. Do we have an idea of the dollar amounts?
I don't know, because I don't know, like, when, what books they weed out, like,
Right.
you know, do you put the donated books on the shelf too? When you get,
There's a process to that too, as if it's other libraries have them, we look through that, publish dates, is it something that the date can be added, some we do add, and then what we don't accept old versions of encyclopedias, there's items that we don't, accept, but some items do get added to our collection.
Actually, the question right now is,
well, I can tell you this, the value of the book sale is usually around $4,000. I mean, and that's all the books sold, so, and they, in the past, 10% of that?
Yes.
Has gone back to the general fund.
well, just to,
I don't know, that's what I found that it's been. I was not here when they made that decision and I can't find it.
it is no different than road and bridge and, Snyder Mill. Okay? All that was purchased with taxpayer dollars. Okay, except for donated books. But I think the book sale of the books is, as the warm taxes bought, should go back to the general reserve. And then the donated books, you bet. But it's Friends of the Library, I don't have an issue with that, but
But the ones that were purchased by the county should come back to the
I would,
county.
I would think so.
Okay.
That is,
Or would I mean, I'm just thinking for logistic purposes because of tracking this.
Mhm.
It's not gonna be an easy process to track, not that it's not a doable process, I mean, everything is, you can do anything you put your mind to. So, would that be advantageous to do that, or would it be something as a percentage amount? Has it had been, I don't know who chose the 10%, where that number came from. I believe it's been doing since Janie Romaine was the director there, and so that was many years ago.
okay, all right,
I don't know the purpose and how they decided 10% of that.
in that case, I don't think 10% is enough, okay? I don't, cause that's 4,000, that's 400 bucks. $2,000 roughly, and that includes donated books, books bought by the county, blah, blah, blah. How about we split the difference at 50%, half of it goes to general reserve, and the other 50% goes to Friends of the Library.
For the,
Total book sale. And that way, you don't have to weed out the donated books or anything else, because they sell them all. They're not gonna come up and say, I'm gonna buy this donated book. They're not gonna do that.
doesn't matter what the funds go to, for the Friends of the Library?
No, that's their deal. That's their deal. My opinion. Yeah.
They usually use the Friends funds for their children's, yeah, during the summertime, they use a lot of Friends program for that.
Insurance, Christmas program, sorting programs, returning items, craft items, and then we also use it for, people make donations for memorials. Certain different memorial items. We want books bought and made, specifically in donation of their lost loved ones and stuff. All of that comes from there also.
What do y'all think?
And
I'm
I will
just-
say
know,
too,
yeah.
that
I'm doing all the talking.
the children's book, the county pays very little for the children's, summer program. That, almost all of that comes out of, nearly all of that, other than the hours of, the employees working it, comes out of the Friends program, because they give away so much, and you can't give away stuff with $90. So the majority of that program, and that is a very, popular program with a lot of children, and I know that they've expanded it this year to include a teen program. So, there's that aspect of it as well, but that money does go,
It goes back to the community.
and it goes for the children.
Yes.
I mean, and they do other stuff too, but the summer program's their big thing.
Right, well, they always have, been. So, y'all, yep.
Me, we don't make, right now.
Those 10%.
Well, easier because you take half of it and her budget's gonna go that much more next year, so it's what's the difference? To cover the expenses.
Well, like Friends of the Library is done by the.
We don't budget that much.
But if you take 50% of that, that's not gonna go to it anymore.
Okay. You know, I don't care. That's what I want to know, is nobody will say nothing to me.
That's what I'm saying, I mean, you take 50% of that, then to do the Friends of the Library stuff again next year, their budget's gonna be a little higher to cover it.
Okay, that's fine.
Does the Friends of the Library have an account balance? Is it large, is it small, do they spend it all?
It's currently 45,000.
And like she said though, that comes from donations
Yeah, that's all.
from the community.
How much do you spend out of that a year? How much is spent out
Are
of
you
that?
spending the interest out of it, or you just?
It depends, it fluctuates, what programs.
It's mostly during the summertime, because they get the bouncy castles, they do like a movie day, if they have so many reading hours, they have different incentives for the kids to read and be participating in the reading program. So the summertime, expenses are a little bit more, and then in the winter for Christmas, then they have like the different thing for Christmas still, but they don't really spend that much out of there. But like I said, it's everything that they spend goes back to the children, and it's all for children. Even this winter time, it's the children, it's not even like, yeah.
Wait a minute, this whole one. Make a motion to donate all the books to the Friends of the Library.
That's a turnaround. All in favor?
I'm the only one that said anything.
I'll give everybody an opportunity.
We're discussing consider use of the Scurry County Youth Center for the Mother Championship Wrestling. We're gonna let Heather address this.
So, Michael Morrison, they're out of Lubbock, contacted us. They do fundraisers. It's kind of like a local WWF to Scurry County before in 2018 at the bike rally. I didn't really find any information on if they performed for you guys then. But in the last 5 years, they've completely kind of changed their program. It's more family-based and trying to help like youth entities and really wherever the county needs to raise money. Normally they charge $2,500 to $3,000 to come out, set up. I did bring pictures in case anybody wants to see what it kind of looks like. And they have, after discussing, they decided to waive that fee. They will get their, there's the pictures. It says on the bottom where they work. That's like the setup and then the night that they did it in the Mesa Boys and Girls Club. They will waive the fee, as long as they can keep the ticket sales to get that fee. And then once that, if the ticket sales have met that fee, we'll get the remaining money. And if it doesn't meet that fee, they will cover the difference. And then they will also, we will run our concession stand, so that'll be another source of income for us. And then they're going to do a raffle where, our center and somebody in the crowd would split that money and kind of just share it in that sense. So it's no cost for us at all. It's just, they would set up at the center, it'd be open to the public. They sell tickets, the tickets would go on sale until August. The event would be September 23rd. They do all the advertising, they pay for all that. We would just essentially share it, open up our center to that. And from what I've found out and asked around, it's pretty successful. Lamesa raised about $4,500 to $4,700 in their night. And I thought, hey, it doesn't get much better than that if they're gonna waive the fee. It's like,
Well, what is their fee? Just
$2,500 to $2,000. Yeah, he says it kind of varies. We would be more on the 2,000 side because the agenda than how air conditioning. But if we have a portable van, so they said that they would still come. They really don't like to go to places without air conditioning because it is just kind of like what you would see on TV. It's their local people. It's pretty fun. The kids seem to enjoy it, and actually, the research I did, more adults went than children. So this would just be asking permission if it is okay for us to host this event and use the youth center for it.
What's the maximum occupancy
It's like around 3,000. So
that you can have in that building at
yes,
one time?
yes. I think actually, yes. I have the paperwork. He had came when I first took over. I got the occupancy laws, just because I was concerned about kids.
Good.
But I will never reach that amount. No. So, we would be, have that, and then I would ask if someone, in the sheriff's department, or if possible, if we could have, someone come and do security. I don't foresee it being a problem or a need, but, you never know. And I get excited with all the
I saw a
promotion.
nod, so that's.
So, this would just be asking permission before we go and advertise. We'd like to do pre-advertising just to get more sales in, and, like early bird specials and things like that.
what's going to be the liability issue for the county?
I will say that they do come with their own insurance. I did ask about that. They have their own insurance, and, I did ask our insurance carrier just in case. She said based on their insurance, she viewed it wouldn't affect us and we wouldn't be liable based on their insurance.
Judge, I think what, during that youth center to have their wrestling event, make some money.
Yes.
All in favor? All right, Court, thank you, Heather, appreciate that. Court to discuss and consider the process to decommission the NVD at Instant Airport.
2 posts and a piece of wire.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we decommission something that is no longer being utilized.
Well, it got
at the
pulled
airport.
over, so. All in favor?
Say it with a comb.
No, it got blown over. It got blown over.
You've been in here too long.
It's got a comb over.
Carrie made it like you seconded. Sean, okay, sorry. I squirreled a minute.
certification of additional revenues in the form of funds received from Snyder Iron and Metal. We'll go ahead and do the Preco Energy Solutions and, tax for MBD supplements.
Okay,
And that fuel.
yeah, I was like, I think I have two of them. I'm looking at it. There's the Snyder Iron Metal that was sell of, this metal to there for Road and Bridge, so $860. Then the TAC insurance supplement for $1,671, that's not right, comes on there, right? $1,675.09. This is the supplement on the youth center roof. That was the additional amount that we got.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't very much, but
Yeah. Not much at all.
no.
Yeah.
And I had a sticky note on my desk with the total amount, but I was busy before the meeting and I forgot of what we've received for the youth center roof, but it's still like
1,600 and something for that.
plus the
this time,
36,
right? Plus-
yeah, so it's like net less than 40,000 we've received for the, youth center roof.
Okay.
The ad fuel, this is just the proceeds from the ad fuel, 50,000. He would also like to request that go into the, airport Texas Class Reserve Fund, which is what we normally do, so that we could pay for that the TxDOT, runway grant, our portion of that that's coming in. And then the last one is the, Preco Energy Solutions for $1,620, to go in, there's a budget amendment placing that into a line too, and this is for the, I don't know, Terry, there's a police report attached to it, so, road materials.
Somebody decided that they wanted to borrow some millions, and they left their backhoe there and got caught. They decided they want their backhoe back, and they decided to pay for
The millings they took.
The sheriff got through raining, and I think there's some miscommunication, some part of it, maybe. There was a sign there that said Scurry County, material, so I don't know how to get that. Anyway, we got $1,620 for it.
Well, at least you could tell us first on the order.
They brought their own backhoe.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's how we caught them.
In the past, right?
So, what was it,
Make a motion that we start all additional revenues.
in the airport, put
I
there?
assume it's gonna be in a budget amendment.
It's not a budget amendment, it's not a budget amendment required to put in there, it's a motion that y'all make to.
So allow the, airport to keep the ad fuel funds for the TxDOT Aviation grant fund.
No, not ramp.
What was it?
Runway.
It's the runway.
It's
The
runway.
ramp is a whole different grant, so no.
Runway.
Yes. He's got a lot.
Almost got it right. It's been a long time.
Second.
All in favor? All right, fun part. Not, court consider the resignation of Kirsten Kinnicky, the county treasurer.
It has been an honor to serve my community. We have accomplished some wonderful things, my team and I, and we've encountered several challenges that we have overcome. I am leading open projects for the new treasurer to come in and do. I want to thank everyone who came to me, who let me help them and let me assist them. It was an honor to do that and a very big privilege. It's been thank you for letting me serve Scurry County. It's been a pleasure.
Let's put nice, but no.
That's what I told her.
And so if we don't accept, you're gonna stay?
No. I will, I'll do my duties as the treasurer, but it will not be the full extent if you do not.
Well, Judge, in that case, I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Kirsten Kinnicky and thank her for what she's done.
Yeah, you done good.
Yeah, good job, appreciate it. All in favor? Court consider posting job vacancy for county treasurer and timeline for the receipt of applications thereof. Thinking of posting it today and accepting applications at minimum through July fifth, do some interviews on July fifth possibly, and try to get that timeline moving forward. I think a couple of weeks is enough time to, set up for some interviews. So maybe not accept them through, we can continue accepting them, but anything we get by Friday, we would interview those folks.
Second.
Friday.
Mhm.
Let me verify that date for the fifth. That would be the June 30th, and then July 5th would be, alright, so,
Are you gonna want to interview them on July 5th?
correct, yes.
I highly don't think that's a good idea.
I
You
know.
have court, you have budgets.
What is your
This-
suggestion?
This is a job that translates to the public sector. Ideally, you would get some good candidates and to expect them to sit through commissioner's court, through a budget session, and then be interviewed and go through that whole process, that's gonna be a multitude of
That's
hours.
just training for the job. I'm kidding, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I think, you know,
Well,
you
wanna
set
up
up
a different
interviews.
date?
Maybe
Or-
a special session, a
Yeah,
special session.
On,
Do you want to interview every single applicant?
you'll review every application. Or we, the 11th, the next week. Or you wanna do?
We can't make choices unless we're in
Well,
court.
unless there's,
Decide that.
with the resumes, and if there's
Yeah.
some,
That's true. But
So what I would suggest is July 5th, you look at resumes, decide who you want to interview. Interview those people within the next couple of days, all the while still collecting resumes up until June 19th. July 19th. Make your decision on July 20th. If you want to interview any additional people, you can decide at that time.
You're talking about, you say July 20th.
Isn't that the next?
18th.
18th,
that's given us 11 days
yeah, I know.
to your departure, right? And so we would receive resumes even 45 of them. We could be actually looking at and come forward and make a decision on those that we do want to interview that.
On the 5th. And set up interviews for,
I would think 18th next week.
or we can do it on the 11th when we don't have budget going on.
If there's a situation where it's a clear answer or only a few applications are received and the decision's clear, then that changes everything.
Sure.
It also depends on if we hire within Scurry County, because they can step into the position a whole lot quicker. If we hire outside Scurry County, then they're most likely going to need to give 2 weeks' notice.
cross that bridge, one thing at a time.
What's your pleasure, what is your interview, what are your resumes on the 5th?
Yep.
And then,
As soon thereafter.
Resume will be due on the 5th?
No resumes
No.
due on the 3rd,
Yeah.
so that you can review them on the
Start
5th.
doing them as quickly as possible. Then make a decision if we would want to interview on the 5th.
We'll then have an executive session on the Monday or Tuesday after that.
we can do it on the 11th, the following week. Or we can wait till the 18th, however you choose.
You can also review any applications online.
Means that Kirsten's gonna be leaving at the end of July.
you have it posted on the, on. as an
Probably
agenda.
posted, yeah, or, and I posted second. Post one for. This particular position needs to be filled ASAP.
Yes,
we
because they
need
have to
her,
sign checks with me.
and we need her to get
Just saying.
acclimated.
There's two signatures have to be on there, and after July 30th, hers can't be on there, so.
Well,
I need some-
it can, I won't abandon my duties, as treasurer until we have somebody securely in position.
That's recorded.
Right there.
So, it won't be, it would not be at 10 o'clock. I have, a hearing set up at 10 and one at 11.
What about
On
1
that
o'clock?
Thursday on the 6th. So,
Which is fine.
1:30, that's fine.
So we are setting till July 3rd.
Mhm.
We're gonna,
Look at resumes on the 5th,
on the 5th,
and do interviews on the 6th.
6th.
That's your motion?
Yes, sir. That was your motion, I'm just saying.
I'm here to help as much as necessary. Like I said, there's several projects that I'm actively working on. They will probably even take me into several months, just because I love Scurry County and I feel it's duty to tie it up.
So you made a rash statement, you said you wouldn't abandon your duties, but you are.
But
She's just transferring.
transfer.
Yeah, but.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Okay. Let's go ahead and do the line item transfer, the budget amendments, and after that, and we'll come back to
Okay, I have one budget amendment. It is for road and bridge, that $1,620, put it into the, equipment, 1,000 to 5,000, that's the money we certified earlier. And then I have 3 line item transfers. The first one is county judge, 800 into office supplies out of bonds and notaries. The second one is supervision into inmate medical expense, $1,629 out of, equipment and other equipment. I worked through inmate who was injured while they were out doing some work. And then the golf course is tires and tubes, 200 out of capital expense line.
Motion to approve.
Yes.
Line item transfers and budget amendments.
all in favor. Oh, whether it's a second, any second, all in favor. All right.
Budget tables.
Tables, please.
Your table is 741,505.88 plus 13,674.52. That was credit card. We got the final bill in today, so we can send that off.
Let's keep them up.
All in favor? Okay, let's recess for about 5 minutes, there's some documents I need to get, and then we'll come back and work on that.
They don't like that long story.
We got a meeting at 1:30, we got some goldfish, 3:30.
Y'all picked the wrong commissioner's court. Very
Is there
simple.
ever a right one?
Huh?
Is there ever a right one?
Yeah, the ones that don't last 2 hours.
This is Jeannie, this is
You're fine, I'll watch it.
whatever. I'm always like, where you at? Especially their butts.
My watch told me to get up, so I get up.
help
Favorite
again.
Chicky with honesty too.
I've been told we're stopping. Trey's not gonna be able to be here the next 2 meetings, so we're gonna go ahead and knock out Sheriff and Joe. I've given you each a, 2020, it should be 2024 budget request per department. Not shown are in addition to or less than prior year budget, similar to what I gave you last year. And it goes through every department that has a change, a request or taking something out. Total changes is on page 5, finishes on page 6, and the total is $708,000 there as far as requests go. And then it got a list of capital requests, personnel changes and requests. And like I said, some are less, some are more. So, we'll start going through departments. We'll start with my office. My bond renewals went down $1,600 and I didn't ask for anything more. Any questions about? Commissioner's Court, there were some minor changes. Some expenses went up, office supplies, precinct 1 education, precinct 1 auto expense, precinct 2 auto expense, bonds went down, dues went up $940, so a total of $3,026 for commissioners.
$900. That's $900. Court. Just for that 5 minutes. Correct?
Oh, it's just y'all 4.
We're going what?
Yeah.
Education is up.
So we
You can't get away with it.
no. Yeah, so it went from 5,060 to 6,000 for, dues. 3,000 total is the. Next one, emergency management coordinator. This would be a whole new department if we take this direction. And this would, it's not just emergency management coordinator, it would also be public information officer for, any information that we need to put out, any requests that come in will go through that person. The reason I'm bringing this in is because, as you all know, Perry is retiring at the end of this year. Nathan has lots of shoes that he fills. If he fills those shoes, that's more duties on top of it. Emergency management coordinator is something else that he does. The more jobs you have, everything suffers in one way or another, and I hate to have that burden just on him. And emergency management falls under the county judge, and then emergency management coordinator. And I don't always get all the information when something happens. It's not anybody's fault. It just doesn't always flow. Communication doesn't always flow because they're busy all the time and in the middle of whatever's going on. There's more to it than that, obviously. It's just if something happens, we need somebody to be able to facilitate all the different aspects of the emergency management. You know, make sure that things are getting done. So, like I said, the public information officer, that is gathering information and disseminating information. Any requests that come in, they go to each department and get the information from them. So, the total would be about $215,000 for the first year. I'm talking to the city about that, if they want to look at paying half of that. We've also had some other ideas about, someone else taking the responsibility that's in another department within the county and maybe including those duties on them, but I'm not sure about that aspect of it. So.
Period of time. Changes the one would be if Nathan's gonna take his spot.
Sure. there are at least 4 different hats that I know Nathan wears right now.
Oh, well,
That is one of them. And that's one thing he doesn't want to let go of, I don't think, is his code enforcement. And or his arson investigator.
well, I mean,
Still early.
it is.
Absolutely revisit.
I think we can revisit it and see what happens in the transition and what the city does do. You may be right. If they don't replace that, but I think they do. I don't know that. But,
Well, we won't know that until, January, at least.
right. But we'll have an idea, surely, of what they're planning for.
I think some of this stems from the fact that not long ago, the city actually believed that they were head over emergency management. Very certainly believed that Nathan did that.
I can tell you the reason why is because the previous county judge did not do any part of the emergency management, did not stand up and do his position, because I had multiple conversations with both Perry and Nathan about this, and that was the reason why it was left on them and somebody had to do it, so they picked it up and took over it. And they were doing it, so they just kept doing it.
But like I say, they actually believed until about 3 or 4 years ago that the city would, in the city, that they were head over the mayor.
Well,
Just
it's
wasn't true.
But you.
But now they know.
It
Something
can,
happens.
yeah, it could be me, the mayor, the mayor, and, nothing against any of the mayors, but, that can rotate pretty quickly, and I don't think it's a responsibility that they really want, especially being unpaid. So,
Okay, I would like to see what happens as far as what the city does do, because we do have time.
I would like to know, excuse me, go ahead, on the capital expense, if we did have emergency management, take that over, wouldn't they hand over whatever that capital expense is to us?
it would be a
Whatever
vehicle,
they have.
yeah, I
Oh,
don't know,
it'd be a-
yeah, it would be a vehicle, and that's the, I've talked to Fred about striping radio and lights and all of that, and that's.
Oh, that's the auto expense then.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I did. So the initial idea was to get all of the taxing entities involved. I haven't seen much interest in dividing it, so.
Have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Would this be, budgeted in an existing department or its own department?
That's what we're still trying to figure out right now, if it would be its own department or if it would be under another department. This is just initial, trying to figure it out.
What other department would be considered?
I don't know at this point. I mean, it potentially could go under another department. It could go under the sheriff's department or EMS or somewhere that does has emergency management aspects to it potentially, or it could be a standalone department. But now, I hadn't mentioned Trey going in. So this is a surprise to him, so.
Lots of details.
Yeah, lots of discussion to be had with this, yeah. So, I mean, I knew today, going into today, that this is kind of a, just touch it and put it out there. Cody, you had,
Has Nathan been asked, and if so, what's his opinion on it?
I've talked to him about it in the past, and, he is willing to allow someone else.
But on the entire position, as far as it needs to be a coordinator,
They would still be involved,
not
but
does he wanna give it up,
Right.
Does he think that it needs to be a full-time position?
when we talked, he felt like, I got the impression that, yes, he felt like it needed to be a full-time position. I will ask him again, and you're more than welcome to ask him also, if you would like. But I will further that discussion with him and see what his thoughts are. It can be a full-time position because each entity has their own, full-blown, what's called annexes, and they are about that big. Again, Doug was helping not too long ago. And it's everything that you are required to do by the state, as far as who's responsible for what. And, in the past, they've been kind of generic, and they've gotten to where they want it specific. And so you have to drill down on who's doing what responsibility in all of these annexes. It's A through K, L, M, somewhere around there. And that's just one aspect of it, and that's done every 5 years, and so that has to be updated for every entity that we have, and we have 7 entities in Scurry County. And not just that, but preparedness. You know, we, do, drills on occasion. We try to do at least one a year. I'd love to see more happen. Emergency management coordinator, what their job is, would be able to do those. And not just for one entity or another entity, but to go to each entity and do their own drill there. A lot of times there are, aspects that are left out of those drills. I know, precincts don't always get involved in those. And the drill may not involve them, but we need to have drills that do, because they're gonna be an essential part of it. Financial aspect of it doesn't always get involved in those drills, but they are absolutely the first and foremost that needs to be involved in that. So, you know, you've also got TechStock that may not be involved in some of those need to be involved. So there's a lot to emergency management that we really need to follow up on. If we do a drill, we talk about what's good, what went right, and what went wrong. Don't necessarily always get around to fixing what went wrong. So I don't know that we're totally prepared if we do have an emergency today. If a tornado came through here in our next storm and wiped us out, I don't know that we would be completely prepared. And I don't think we ever will get completely prepared, but I wanna be a whole lot closer to that than where we are now. An emergency management coordinator can do that for us.
And if we lack in that, it could be a possibility that we will fail to receive federal and state funding.
Yes,
We were lacking.
especially with the financial aspect.
The last time we were invited to take part, the finances was invited to take part of a drill, was like, Tricia was still the auditor.
Yeah, and see, I want
And
to fix that.
I went, Kirsten and I went
Yeah.
to it then, and that was the last time. But I know that all finances, all requests for reimbursements has to go through, even from just the city, has to come through my office, and I have to sign off on and make sure that there's emergency policies for purchasing and all that, but it's been a while.
And by no means am I saying anything against Perry or Nathan. They've
No,
done a great job. And, you know, Perry has led this charge with emergency management for as long as he's been involved in anything in Scurry County, and Nathan has picked up that torch as well. But I wanna take that burden from him.
Let's, like I said, we've still got time.
Yeah.
But as far as receiving state funds, whether, if we do that, because right now we do that one. Like,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
is there any way to find out if Nathan is not replaced? If that is going to kick us out of the funds from the state?
That, really, that's more towards, having the finance departments available and coordinated with everybody else at the beginning, not necessarily Nathan or Perry being emergency management coordinator. That goes more towards, we have to have Angela.
Yeah, when they call it stand up an emergency, we have to be notified, so we can get our stuff and go to the emergency control place. And we have, somebody from both these offices have to be there 24/7 during, and a big, if it's a big event, not, I mean, COVID was, it was whatever, but.
Yeah, but more of a natural disaster type.
Yeah, a real emergency, like a tornado or something.
You're talking about Perryton type deal.
Yes,
Yes.
like Perryton,
Yeah.
their city hall was devastated and everything, so we would have to be prepared, my office, her office, to go and stand up at the emergency and be there the entire time, all the way through the entire event. And when TDM would send somebody to assist, but we would have to know, but that wouldn't, I don't think the emergency coordinator, it would just be a person that, for us, that would be a contact, hey, we've got an event, it's stood up, cause it could happen in the middle of the night and we have to be able to go.
The main thing about the event is you don't wanna lose control. You can have your state entities, but it's a Scurry County event and needs to be ran by Scurry County.
Right.
And there's also things like if you don't have policies in place already, they're correct policies for purchasing, and they go and they purchase all this stuff at somewhere that's not in the policy procedures manual, then it's not reimbursable from TDM or any of that, FEMA. So, you have to know, your policies have to be current and into place, and that is important with whoever is leading over the emergency stuff. That's why Nathan and I had so many conversations, cause he had the emergency management policies manual. He had actually a big book as big as that budget book, but then he got it all onto some CDs, and probably now it's on a flash drive. But, he kept up with that, but things changed rapidly.
Yeah,
So-
and as far as agreements with, not just government entities, but private businesses, those have not been kept up at all. And Nathan doesn't have the time to do that. Emergency management coordinator would be able to go to Brandon and say, can we have an agreement where if we need fuel during this emergency, we can, we have first priority, or however the agreement needs to be written up, and need to do that countywide. It's a contingency plan. Right?
Yeah.
Constantly updated.
And it's not one to stay working off of on regular time, it's only for emergency, so that, I know that in the past, some counties, there have been like issues, well, they continued working off of that emergency deal, well, it's no longer considered emergency once they stand down, so
Right.
you have to go back to regular policies and procedures, so having an emergency person also can verify that. Cause my office isn't gonna be out there in the field, we're gonna be in a emergency place and entering everything and getting file forms and stuff.
Do other counties around have this position
There are other counties that have emergency management.
close to us, or?
Yeah, there are some, but I don't know off the top of my head. But I'll double check and see who runs this.
There's some smaller counties that don't have one that possibly need it, so, Borden, if it's something that they could help participate in.
I understand what you're saying. I think the first couple of years, they're gonna be so busy catching up with some of those agreements and some of those, outside agreements, county to county, business to county type agreements and catching up the annexes. The first year or two, they would have their hands full just with Scurry County.
You said that's every 5 years they have to redo it, so we just did them this year, so we've got 5 years.
Right, that's for those annexes, that's not for the agreements with the counties or the businesses that we don't have caught up. And knowing what we have as far as emergency supplies, we still don't know for sure what we do have. We have an idea, but we don't have a full-blown list of what we do have, or what we need. That's an issue. So, but we can come back to that. Yes, ma'am.
Can ARPA funds be used for that position? Since COVID
Not
has been
really.
an impact to create that position?
No, ma'am, I don't believe they could. I really don't. That was very specific in what it could be. And emergency management wasn't really specific. I can tell, did you?
No, cause the emergency management's always been something that has always been an issue, not just since COVID.
Although it's increased significantly.
Yes, it has increased more, but it's always been something that there should be somebody in control over the emergency management. It was because Perry and them took care of it.
Yeah,
Right,
and it's
yeah.
even listed on the city's website, the EMC, that position.
Yeah, of Snyder,
Yeah, of Snyder.
Snyder, but not for Scurry County.
It says in agreement, but whatever the wording is.
Yeah. Right.
Hopefully they will, if you guys decide that they will, share.
Yes, sir.
I have a actual other thing here. It does say you can't provide premium pay for workers providing essential work during the pandemic.
Premium pay, that's like extra pay for.
Oh, okay.
And that also just ended, we just received an email last week saying that because the pandemic is officially over, premium pay ended now. So,
So it'd be like a bonus.
yeah.
But not,
Yes. It's been declared over now.
Do you know if Perry receives any additional like stipend or anything
From the city, I don't know.
from the city to do that role?
I'm not sure.
let's split up a team. You know, the worst thing you do is have it when I need it. Okay? Not have to need it, sorry. I've been here too long. But we, shut up, Melody.
That was so nice.
What was that?
Let's get more information. And, all of us can visit with Nathan and Barry both.
Maybe you can come.
Yes, I do. And, when we got some time. Barry come in there, I bet they wish he'd get one.
I don't know if they do.
They got mail somewhere, I do know they got one.
Okay, so we'll go from there to the next one that had a request was county clerk. So asking for an additional deputy, records went up $300, voter registration went down, education and training, voter registration went down 2,000, education and training went up 300, bonds went down 683, election expense went up to,
Did you get the?
17,000.
I went up again
Yes.
because of, and this is why, we just received more legislation according, and it passed. So now, this November, which the budget doesn't affect that, it's, so, we'll be required to do Saturday and Sunday voting, for early voting. And, yeah, and then in the March primary, I will be required, because it's a 2-week, for the primary, the runoff, and the general, 2 weeks of early voting, will now be required to do a whole week of 12-hour days, plus Saturdays and Sundays. So that's gonna take additional funds to pay overtime to my people and or probably hire more workers for the elections. Unfortunately, even during primary, the parties pay for the election day, but the county is responsible for paying for early voting.
That's the one you've been talking about, the legislation.
That's one of them. And then also, I upped it because they're redoing all of the wording on the applications for ballot by mail. And we just bought a bunch, so we'll have to go and buy a whole bunch of new ones. I went to I think I had 15 on elections, and I went to 17, I went up $2,000. I don't know if that's gonna be enough to cover the additional people that I'm gonna need. I don't know, as far as for election workers. Now, I've also requested a new position to help Lori because of this, but also with the reporting, and everything that has gotten required over the new stuff we have to do for elections. It's not just a one-day thing anymore, it's days and days and days that it takes, and she needs a little bit of help with voter registration. It's not just election, it's also with helping with voter registration. Between DPS applications, changes, there's a lot of stuff going on that I felt like she needs extra help to help her work elections. And, well, all of that part of it.
Is there any way you could utilize a part-time person?
A little bit, but it would have to be, I'd have to definitely up my part-time. I did not up my part-time, but I would definitely have to not up the part-time. I mean, part-time's better than no time, I'll say that. I don't know what the dollars are to what a full-time, part-time would cost.
I would have to look at that, get with Angela and see what that, the actual,
And I would suggest that being, right now, we've ran into our part-time is only $12 an hour.
finding someone willing to work it, that can handle the duties.
But I mean, then it's just, they can work part-time, as long as their average is lower than 30 hours a week.
Lower than 30?
During the election time.
During the election, you can't.
Well, that's for election workers, yeah, but I'm talking about.
Well, even your part-time person could work more than part-time hours during the election time, as long as they weren't doing it consistently.
Oh, okay.
More than,
Consistently, 6 weeks.
yeah.
Okay.
And then you'd be saving on health insurance and benefits.
Yeah. So, whatever.
But you would have to visit the part-time pay rate, cause.
Right.
You know, you're not supposed for $12 an hour.
Right now, with 12, see, 360 a week.
That's definitely not enough with elections.
It's,
What did you go with?
Well, for 3 weeks, I've been going through the, active files. I'm only on H.
You're a working mom, girl.
She wants to.
Well, we could visit for part-time. Pay, you look into that. It's my fault.
Okay.
For right now.
full-time, part-time, I'll see what the pay rate, and what that total up line would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what is the hours, is the hours the same on full-time, part-time, less than 30?
So here's the issue, you go over 30, due to the Affordable Care Act, they're considered a full-time
Full-time
employee, and then you have to offer full-time benefits, which is your health insurance.
Yes.
So,
More than 6 weeks.
if it's more than 6 weeks. So, let's stop with the term full-time, part-time.
Okay.
Let's go part-time to full-time.
Part-time, full-time, not full-time, part-time. Part-time, full-time.
Part-time by itself?
Part-time,
Full-time. Not part-time, full-time.
Full-time, you expect them to work 40 hours, part-time, you expect them to work less than 30.
Okay, how about we rephrase it to permanent?
Permanent, part-time,
There you go.
because there's temporary part-time and permanent part-time.
Permanent.
So you did it again.
But if the $12 an hour times 30 hours a week, times 52 weeks, you're looking at $18,000.
You know, 30 hours a week.
23,000 if you went to 15 minimum.
Which then I would suggest.
My point is, somebody spends 30 hours up here, they've got 10 hours, they won't go do something on the side, which is not enough to make up anything. But let's look, you good figure on the part-time?
Okay.
Because you said it's not gonna affect you this November, but
It is gonna affect us, because we have to do all 12 hours Saturday, 12 hours Saturday and 6 hours on Sunday. But we can do it with overtime.
Yeah, but what we're working on for next year is.
That's what I'm
It's gonna be the big advantage, yeah.
See how you get along this time, if you can, find somebody, and we gotta do a budget next year too. And
There's nothing mentioned in 25 though.
Yeah, only the constitutional amendment ones.
Yeah. But this. But my full-time worker that I'm asking for is not, this came in, I asked for that way before this even hit the fan. This is, yes, even more reason I do need that person, but I need that person before all this happened. Just for the daily duties that we do. With one less person, having 3 people, it makes it hard when I've got one sick, and I have a couple that are sick a lot, so I've got a lot of time that they're out. If that leaves us with one person or two people to run the whole office, and that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, vacation.
Vacation,
On top of that.
everything else that goes on with staff.
FMLA, if someone.
My God.
got a child.
Mm-hmm. Well, not just that, but just for sick.
But I mean, that's 12 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
FMLA.
Yeah.
You've got a partner that's sick, you can go home for 12 weeks.
Right. They could.
The $12 an hour part-time is way too low. It's way too low. If we,
Put that on the next agenda.
yes, put that, do that, and see what you get as far as things we can make y'all, because we can always revisit it.
Yeah.
If it blows up and you just flat can't.
Can't.
What are we doing?
Part-time, so we need to, as you said, put it on the agenda for the part-time person.
For the part-time.
Yeah. Cause that's gonna need to be done for a good while.
So you're saying not a full-time position?
For the part-time.
My fault.
What do y'all think?
I think she would be very difficult to find a partner. It'll stay with you. I think it's gonna be very difficult.
Then we'll get them trained to the lead for part-time.
Maybe that doesn't work for you? Is that something you're willing to try?
You know? No, I don't think it's gonna work. I don't think I can find somebody that will be willing to, that, you know, will stay. And once we train them and they get trained on how to do everything, but I would like, that's why I asked for full-time, because that's what I need. But if that's not what y'all are willing to do, and you'll give me part-time, I'll take it. You know, I don't say, no, I don't want nobody. I'm not gonna do that by any means. If I can get at least somebody in there 30 hours a week, if I can find somebody, that'd be awesome, but I'd rather have them 40.
If I can add, I don't know, Sean, you may remember, Melody did at one time have another person, and then when she was asked to cut the budget, that, they retired, so she cut that out of her budget, so
I do remember that.
I would like to remind y'all of that.
I'll get it back later, but that's not happening.
Well, Ned, if you find that right part-time person, okay? You may not, I'm not, you never know.
No, you don't.
And they turn out to be really good. There's nothing that says you can't
That's
show
to
them
make them
Try to ask them for
full-
full-time.
full-time. If you
I'm
know.
willing to try. I'm willing to try.
Okay. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
that's my fault. That's it. You might find a person 6 months in, and you might think,
Cause you could even get a full-time person and 6 months in, they could be the worst employee you ever had.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean,
It happens.
it goes both ways. One of the things that Cy does, and he hires them full-time, but he hires them at the lower rate, and then he works them for so long, and if they've improved and they've done good, then he will increase them up to the budgeted rate, because they prove themselves. He's had many that they have not made it to that. They didn't left after. They didn't get to that point. But that would kind of be the same concept of hiring them at a part-time deal with a thought and think, if you do good and you work well and you learn these things, I'll go back to court and get permission to move it to a full-time position.
We did that with welfare.
Yes, that's it, yeah.
That is another function of doing a salary compensation study, is they do look at staffing. You
in
have
your
it in your
book.
budget book.
Okay.
Did you ever get the other one?
No, but they did not do a staffing comparison.
Cause you need both.
I'm going ahead and making changes in my budget. I'm gonna go ahead and take that out and put in 23,000,
Put 25 too.
25.
20, we'll do 26 too, because she has an additional, so 26 too.
Alright. Okay, the next area is gonna be non-departmental. So I've gone ahead, into health, taking out the 500,000 for the emergency reserve fund for this year. We're over 2 million right now, in there, in this year's. Fuel and oil went up, looking at 50,000. Copier supplies went down 25,000 since we changed contracts. Audit expense going up $3,000, appraisal district fees going up $9,855. Software maintenance is going up $35,000, I'll come back to that. Property insurance looks like it's going up 70,000. Auto insurance, did you ever get a total on that? I was looking at 2,000 increase on there, but.
We paid the 25,684, so I think it's gonna be about around that same, so the 26 I think should be good.
Okay. And then $50,000 for a salary survey, which you have in here. Public official liability insurance went down 1,000. 90,000 for county sheriff med insurance went up, and that includes a $70,000 payment that, has been lingering out there. It's to TAC for 10 years, 11 years?
Well into 2012.
And then museum went down 2,500, that was that scanner that they wanted last year, they got that. So non-departmental will go down a total of $218,645. Going back to the software maintenance, so, adding 70,000 is what we're looking at for, some software for,
Encode 10 ERP, cloud, it comes with the, like content manager and the employee, like time portal kind of thing for, employee to be able to access their,
Everything.
Yes.
So we're not having to print out paychecks because employees can't keep track of them. Looking at y'all. Anyways, they can go into the self-service portal and print those out, W-2, same thing, and then look at their leave balances again, because they don't keep paychecks, they don't know where their leave is at.
And as far as the Encode 10 ERP section, pro section, there will be no more of those, unless you want to print them yourself, but I won't print them for you. It will be, you will have your own sign-in, and you'll be able to do a read-only for budgets, and for each assigned, like every department, elected official, whatever, would be able to pull up their own budget, see where they are like whenever they wanted to sign in, they would be able to see their budget real time, where they are on their expenses. We would also go into the actual requisitions and purchase order processes, how it should actually be done. That is a full functioning thing in there, where in code 9, it's not really a functioning process in there. Everything would be paperless, it's scannable into there, this is the content manager, so we would not have all of this stuff anymore. It's the actual program doesn't actually cost any more for the annual subscription for it, other than adding the add-ons, like the content manager in the ESS portal for the employees. but what's gonna cost is the migration and the implementation. That's the cost of the 70,000. The actual program doesn't cost anything else more than what we're already paying, except for, like I said, the 2 add-ons. Common attendance and accompaniment.
Every county is going to utilize that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's gonna make their job easier.
We don't have printer leases.
Copier leases is all we have.
I don't have one.
We don't have a copier in ours. We have just like,
Desktop printer.
we have like the ones we order from Quill or whatever. We don't have big copiers. If we have a big job, we take it out.
On that fuel and oil, it shows that current to date only 82,935, so we're 6 months into it. I understand we did this last year, the fuel went up, but it's come down now.
Well, you're looking at a presidential election too. So you're gonna have it's gonna be going up and down. And so it's kinda hard to know exactly where we're gonna land. Where the country goes, like what direction it's gonna go. I mean, right now it doesn't look great.
Right, and you've got OPEC, they're gonna raise prices and it's one of those forecasts that you gotta.
It can go lower, but if it goes up, you're gonna have to do a budget amendment, or I will have to do a budget amendment next year.
And Goldman Sachs is saying oil's gonna be at 90. I think we heard the other day from one of the bankers it's gonna be 100 by the fall.
What are you looking at, Brandon? Cause, I mean, you are.
So I was sitting there trying to look at that 50,000, and right now, back in napkin stuff, the county's using about a transport of fuel a month right now, which is roughly 8,000 gallons, times 12 is 96,000. So you divide your 96,000 gallons, what you really equated for is a 52-cent increase both in unleaded and diesel. To be able to get that market crops a day, you're, just at the stations, 334, so you say 386 on your unleaded would be what you would expect. I think that's very possible, to see a 52-cent increase to go to $3.86 unleaded and $3.94 diesel. I mean, we did that last summer.
I'll take
so
my
I don't
question
think
back, you
that's-
can stop.
I promise no one wants that less than me. I mean, we did that last summer, so I don't think that number is minimal. With that being lumped in as both a fuel and an oil perspective, the county's oil usage is fairly minimal in terms of that not having a huge budgetary reflection. It's mostly gonna be the fuel price.
Thank God we're in Texas, because up north it takes 6.
So you're saying,
I think it's probably fair at 50,000. I think it's also possible, again, your equation on this, you build in 52 cents over today's market, based on what your typical usage is, and again, those are very back of the napkin numbers.
Well, if it doesn't do that,
It goes back to the reserve.
yes, we don't stick it in. So, I'm pretty sure Brandon, if it goes that high, would love to have his money. I don't know that.
I would be calling. It's special session, guys, special session.
And you can go sign this check.
Emergency.
Some money you pay for cigarettes, the fuel bill. We've all $55 diesel.
Cost is still the same.
You didn't play any, you can't say that.
alright, so y'all okay with non-departmental, or is there anything you wanna change, or the salary surveys in there, that payments to 70,000 to TAC for that old payments in there?
What the taking them 500 back? I don't either.
Quick question, where did you put the salary survey? What line did you put that to?
4,500.
Okay.
Well, I think the salary survey needs to go.
Oh,
I've always thought that.
It's an unbiased opinion, they look at the entire market, so I think as we're seeing some changes come from COVID and the job market changing, it's a discussion that we need to have. We have department heads that are saying they can't keep up with the job market right now. This gives you some data. I'm always one for, show me the data, here's an unbiased data.
And as far as that happening in reserves, as we go through and look at, when we finally get the tax rate, then we'll be able to make a better projection. I just wanted to, with so much in request this year, I wanted to back off somewhere. It's not my ideal, and I've got another area that we can discuss that might be possible to make up next year. And I'll explain that further down. But I agree with you, I don't like losing that.
Well, I mean, if you don't put anyone here, our emergency management coordinator. So, it wasn't. It was asking for $2 million would be like nothing.
Yeah, it's 2 months. It's
At
2
the
months.
most, at the most.
I'll go ahead and turn this out then. So,
For nothing else,
here's the other one.
there's always.
They have talked too much about this. So, these are the abatements over the next 12 years. And if you'll look, the first year, next year, it's 841,000. The next year is 901, then 100, then $1 million. All the way to 2032, it's 2.1 million. 2033, it's 2.1 million. Then it drastically drops to 2034. I'm not going to use these payments to calculate against the tax rate, because if in 10 years when those hit or when those start falling off, it's going to affect that tax rate severely. It's going to be way above the 3.5% that we can go up. Also, we need to start building not just emergency reserve, but we can start building a reserve fund. The idea is put this in Fund 29. The, what is Fund 29 called?
Permanent improvement,
Permanent improvement. Put
or
that
capital
permanent-
projects, whatever
Yes.
you wanna call it, but I call
Yeah.
it permanent improvement.
So if we have something go wrong, we have some funds that we can take from, but the general idea is to build it up over the years. Over those years, it should build up to over 16 million, and that should give us a pretty good advantage of where we need to be over that time. The other thing, the other reason why I'm doing this is because the valuation of these, projects drops so fast. You remember when KCE came in, they said that, I think it was KCE, one of them, Cross Trails.
Scurry.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yes.
They're building.
Yes, so they said they were building, a $50 million project. Valuation of that in 10 years would be 20%, going from 50 million to 10 million in 10 years. So, capturing these payments and doing something with it and not putting it against the tax rate keeps us ahead of the game in a couple of different directions. So,
Well, right now, of course, we can't see what's gonna happen in the future, but there's not a very good chance that we'll ever have this much income from tax abatements, because we got wind farms, you, me, the solar. If, say, something does happen, I think we need to capture while it's there.
yeah, and this is the way to do that.
Because, I mean, there's a lot going on in this county right now.
Well, there's one that I didn't put on here because it was already calculated against the tax rate. Without that one, the total value of infrastructure that's.
You're talking about Coyote Wind Farm or Flint Wind Solar?
Coyote.
Like when
I know there's
Yeah,
nothing on there.
I've kind of moved it to this other one, since it's not there yet.
On the ones on the other one are Darmont Wind, Fluvanna Wind, and Coyote Wind.
Yes, ma'am. The Coyote is the most recent, I think, and they, were supposed to make.
They're supposed to make their first payment this year, 193,400. I mean, not, yes, this year.
Mm,
No. They didn't make a payment in 22.
Yeah,
But they,
but they should have.
Yeah,
yeah, they're the one they're behind.
right. But I didn't calculate that one in because it was already kind of captured. The 1.2 billion in infrastructure that has come in, or is coming in to Scurry County. So, for electrical. And that's the other aspect of that, is that if we count on those payments
And they don't pay it.
and they don't pay it, that's potentially up to $2 million. And Coyote Wind is a kind of a,
Well, in Canyon, ain't they gonna start, it says 2024,
correct,
because they're supposed to be up and running at the end of this year.
correct. Yeah. So,
You can count that one.
right.
Then they get that done, they'll start solar right after that.
Yeah.
It's all done too.
Right. So all of that to say, there is a backup for those funds. If we don't use all of those, that the idea is to push those towards, emergency reserves and, just. But that would be in here, and I didn't want to calculate it into this, so that it goes against that rate.
Did the Tyron, will they, if they do their re-phase, do they start over and just put them on these towers?
They didn't do, yeah, they didn't do anything. Any shock? Yeah. Any other questions on one department? Everybody okay with that? I guess we'll wait till short. Cancel our 130?
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah, it was in that. And Kevin,
I ate a bigger breakfast.
we're gonna cancel our 130. Alright, the next one was district court, total of 1,700, office supplies and cell phone, I guess office supplies expenses kind of went up a little bit.
Inflation.
That's not much to consider. Everybody okay with that? Are you good with non-departmental?
Yep.
Okay. District clerk, cell phone expense, $200, travel $50, maintenance agreements went down $475, lease agreements $200, bonds $125, equipment over $1,500, equipment, other equipment under $1,000 is $500, so a total of $1,100. The maintenance agreements was for the, copy machines, and since we're doing it all under one contract, it's not necessary. Any issues there? Okay. District judge, office supplies, you know, your district court and district judge are two different departments, so district judge, office supplies up
You
700.
skipped JP one and JP two.
They didn't have any changes.
Oh, okay.
I'm just hitting the ones that had the. They had carpet requested carpet for this year, that expense is not in there for maintenance, so that's out. Their total is down $11,300. Court reporter, $400 in education and training. And then auditor went up $30 in dues.
Trust.
You know, all of them up or down, or all of them up, that's the lowest of the up. And that should hit our list, but let's go ahead and get, we have to hit Trey, because he's not gonna be here, so. I do too, so. But do we wanna hit, the treasurer and the tax collector too, as long as they're sitting here today, if they're ready? Okay. Treasurer, we'll go ahead and do that one up at 500, we have education and training, bonds down 500, business at 200, other equipment up 500, so a total of 700 up in the treasurer's office.
And you've already stated you wanted to do the salary survey, but I would just like to state that my girls do a lot, and I know other people do, but just speaking for mine, they need an increase. So for everything that they do. Sitting them right at a clerk and a chief clerk does not equate to everything that they do for Scurry County, or equate to what the job market is paying for their positions. Again, my office does translate into the private sector. So I really want that salary survey, and I will, back off of my request for their raises, because I want the salary survey, but I also want to state that my girls need a raise for everything that they do.
Well, I don't think anybody's ever argued that with you for anybody.
Yeah.
So, let's see what Sam's going to do. Back up,
Alright, so, thank you, appreciate that. Any questions on the treasurer? Okay, let's go on to tax collector, she's requesting an additional chief deputy. And I think the total is about 20,462, if I did my numbers right, which I probably didn't, but, postage has gone up, so 3,000 there. Additional in education and training of 500, maintenance agreements have gone up, so additional 5,000, and then equipment went down to 10,000. So, let's talk about, you're wanting to have, an additional chief deputy.
Yes, it's not an additional employee, it's moving in having a chief deputy over tax collection, and then chief deputy over the motor vehicle with the state stuff. Motor vehicle, the employee that's doing that right now it's just overwhelming. The reports that we have to send into the state, the legislation that has come down on us. We're doing web dealer now, where we have to do our title and registrations on new vehicles through the web. Through every dealer, I'm fixing to have to start doing inventory at each dealership. So that means we're fixing to have to be going to each dealership.
They signed that law to take the paper plates.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the metal plates now instead of paper plates when anybody buys a new vehicle.
I knew the metal.
I'm not sure if this is gonna affect us on the weekends. We're still in the beginning process of this, so I don't know really what's gonna happen.
What's their term?
Unfunded mandates. Is exactly what that term is.
So, you're not wanting an additional employee?
I'm not wanting, I just feel like the one that is over this, because there's so many things that are changing and so many things that are happening. We're having to go through all the legislation, all the RTPs that come through, everything that's changing, how we do our daily work, that we're gonna have to keep up with all of this and try to implement that within our office and within each dealership throughout the county.
How many times are you going to do dealerships?
We do dealerships every day, all day.
I'm talking about, now you have to go out there.
Oh, to go out there and inventory?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not sure. This is all thrown at us. So
I'm
I
gonna
don't
just sign
know.
this like last week or the week.
I'm
Do what?
So the governor just signed it like last week or the
Yeah,
week before,
last
he
week or
barely
week
signed
before.
it into law.
There's so many things that are, that all the tax collectors are just in uproar because our hands are tied on the whole situation. And yet, we don't employ these dealerships, but we're gonna have to bond with, be bonded. It's crazy, crazy.
Are you gonna have to increase your bond and a bond on your employees?
That's another thing, if I have to get bonds, I have the option to not issue, stickers. And there's a clause in there where if I don't issue stickers to them, which I don't wanna do that, I mean, you have title clerks that I don't have in my office that you watch and you're seeing what they're doing, or if you're not getting everything. Whenever they enter a title or a MCO, which is the birth certificate of a vehicle, into the system, everything about that has to be correct. Otherwise, it's like you get the birth certificate that has everything wrong on it. And so every vehicle that is sold throughout the county and the other counties from the dealerships and we have 3 major dealerships here that sell a lot of vehicles. 2 different people within our county, other counties as well.
And not to mention the one that's bought outside the county.
Exactly, with the person to person, right. But those will still come through the office that we deal with at Windows.
So are you saying that you would go and inventory the plates, but rather than issuing a sticker there, the
It would
person
go
that
through
purchased the
web
vehicle
dealer.
would come here and get their sticker as always?
Yes. And I mean, it's, like I say, this is gonna be a trial and error. We don't know how this is even gonna play out.
What it is a backdoor property tax estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that term, so it's a backdoor property.
But it's every, the problem is with what they say that they're trying to take care of is the fact that all of the fraud on the, paper plates that's happening. So now there's gonna be no paper plates,
People
it's
can
all
switch
gonna
to
be
a
metal
plate
plates.
just as easy as they can.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't look at it near as close, you wouldn't think, migration.
We have fought and fought, I mean, I'm on the legislative committee and with the Tax Collectors Association, and we have fought and fought and fought over trying to keep this from going into effect, but it was, wow.
So would Leroy be responsible for doing all of
He's the one that's responsible, he's over the motor vehicle part of it, yes.
But this
And I'm
includes
telling you
a,
that he is constant, he is constantly fixing, problems, he's doing the reports, trying to get reports into the state, into the counties, for
More
our
so
stuff
than ever.
here, and, yeah, more so now than ever, yes, absolutely. And then we've got this web dealer coming on, where this is all gonna be,
Well, I figure when you go to inventory or dealerships,
exactly.
You
And
don't have
then
another
I'm gonna
report.
be less an employee in my office, and have y'all seen the traffic in my office? It's constant.
I try not to go to your office.
I know, everybody tries not to. But I mean, it's,
I don't, since you're not wanting with the other whole more person. is what
no, I
I'm saying.
feel like that I need to up that position to a chief deputy position. Because you have tax collections, and ad valorem, and then we have DMV, which, it's overwhelming, very overwhelming. And the more things that keep getting thrown at us, that we're just bogged.
You don't know where to go.
Driver's license is one of the things, yeah, it's not there yet, but they're trying.
Angela and I have a question. We don't, so I know every county is different, 254 ways of doing something. Other counties counties don't collect for all the taxing entities. The other taxing entities do their collection. Do we have interlocal agreements to do the,
We have agreements with, I mean, that's where our commissions come in. We have the commissions, all the commissions that come in on the reports, so that's for collecting for those entities.
okay, so inadvertently we are.
Just in a different way.
I mean, that's what really makes my budget.
And while we've got Jenny in here, we're also gonna talk about another one that she brought up to me the other day about if you have a health department, you can't collect
Oh,
fees.
true, on TABC. Well, yeah, I learned a couple weeks ago that TABC has, or Governor signed a bill, Senate Bill 577 is what it was. And we collect for TABC, every, convenience store within the county, every restaurant, every, grocery store that sells any kind of liquor, whether it be beer, wine, liquor, whatever. They pay TABC and we collect that. It's half of the state fee. Well, Governor signed a bill the other day that if, you have a health department within your entity and they inspect and charge that establishment a fee for inspecting them, that we can no longer collect our TABC fees. So that wipes every grocery store, every Dollar General, every convenience store, restaurants. The only thing now that we're gonna be able to collect is our liquor stores, which is 3 liquor stores. So all of that is gone as well. So that money, then TABC will be.
Do you have any idea what that amount is?
Do you have, I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know I was gonna be brought up on the agenda today.
No, I'm
Do
sorry.
you have what I
You brought it
sent
to
you?
me, it was about 3,200, nearly 4,000
It's
for
almost
2 years.
4,000 a year,
Yeah,
close to something. Which, I mean, that goes into general fund, doesn't it?
yeah.
How does it go? Whenever
It's general fund.
general.
And you said if,
Is that the alcohol beverage?
It's not, it's not a if, it's a,
no, you said if the health department does inspect.
they do.
They do.
Do they, by law, have to inspect a place? I know they have to do the restaurant part, but do they have to, is that part?
Yeah, because they
The alcohol
cook
smell
food,
doesn't comment.
they cook food. So,
But that's.
all the convenience
What's that
stores,
got to do with the alcohol part?
Is that the
because it's
alcohol,
it's
alcohol
called
beverage
a
permit?
food and beverage
Oh.
We
permit.
haven't collected any money.
Is what it under,
We collected in 2022, we collected 16,795, but in 28 and 21, we didn't collect anything. We haven't collected anything year to date in that line anyways. We've collected in mix just now.
Alcohol
we got-
beverage.
from the state comptroller.
From that one, okay, it's not on this report. The mixed drink tax, which is the liquor stores.
Right.
We've collected on that, but
it would be what we bring in through,
Right on
it's not
that.
what comes from TABC. It would be the check written in our office, cause TABC pays y'all as well, right?
she just got a
Right,
the
yeah.
mixed drink one.
Yeah.
I was mistaken.
Will they pay the health unit instead, or? just
Well,
go away?
That's what we were wondering, if we can raise the fees.
I don't know if the,
And they're looking at that.
the health inspector fees, I don't know how that works. I mean, I don't know who sets that fee. It's $150, I know that, that's what they charge to inspect and do the health inspection, and it's yearly.
And
But I
that's-
don't know who sets the fee as far as what.
And I've got them looking at that, see if we can change those fees, if it's the state.
So that's just another loss, a mandated loss that we've got.
So, you're gonna lose 80% of it,
Oh, yeah, at least,
because
yeah.
you're expanding the liquor store.
Yes, we will still have to be, yeah.
Okay, if they're gonna do it, would it not be put back in general reserve, just like she does?
I mean, it's a county loss is what it is, if you look at it, it's a county loss.
Because
it goes to general, which, when the health inspector does the health inspections, that, I don't know where, does that go to general?
Yeah, it goes to
It goes
general.
to general as well.
Yeah.
But it's still a loss as far as
The fee is,
I don't know if you can up the inspection fee,
Well,
or, I mean, because ours is, it's over for us, we cannot collect it.
but my point is, if they're kicking it off on the health department,
Yes,
taking it from y'all,
they're not kicking, that's not,
they're saying that
they're not
because
kicking
they
it off on them.
inspect, they can't, because the health unit
Because
inspects it, they can't collect it.
they can't collect, so
They
they
can't
gonna
collect
collect it?
No, they can't collect it either.
They can't collect the
Maybe go up on their
TAC
fees,
fee.
Unless we go up on the fees if we can.
The only thing, that I don't know who sets the fee, for the inspections. I have no idea. I don't
Is
know how
this
that works.
new, or when did it?
We can make up some of it if we up the fees.
If we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's, yeah, and I don't know who sets those fees. I have no idea.
They're looking at the fees to see if it's us or what we can go up to.
Yeah, that's one of them things we don't control over.
Right.
I guess the other question would be, does TABC get that money? And if they do, and you up the fees, then the restaurants are
No,
being
no,
charged even more.
TABC, that is.
They will not collect it.
They will not collect.
Okay.
I mean,
If
it
they
will
did, they
be,
would do
because
it for
the
you.
deal was the counties were allowed to collect half of the state fees on a license, a liquor license or a beverage license. Now, if it's written, if you have an inspector that charges that establishment for the food cartage part of it, because it's a food and beverage license. So if you have an inspector that charges a fee to that establishment, then you, as a tax assessor collector, can no longer charge the half of the state fee that we collected before.
So you collected and it went to them, they paid you. Is that right?
No,
No, it just.
no, we collected it
Collected
straight,
from
it
us.
came, it came from
So it's
the
not like sales
establishments
tax. Yeah.
straight to us.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was part of their liquor license that they had to pay, their license and permits.
Fees in two different directions.
Yeah.
Anyway, just so you know that we are working on how to recoup those funds in another direction. So, sorry. to put
I
you
wasn't,
on
no,
the
I
spot.
wasn't, that's fine, I didn't have all my stuff,
That's okay.
I wasn't planning on doing mine.
We're just
Yeah.
talking anyway.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right, so what about
But
the,
yes, that's,
Yeah.
another one.
what about the chief deputy position? Y'all, we don't want to be there.
Doesn't appear to me, this is just me talking, y'all can talk. Sounds like me, she's got slapped with a whole bunch of extra stuff. And she's not wanting
An extra person.
an extra person.
We're gonna try, like I say, I don't know what's gonna happen. Once we start having to go to these dealerships and inventory and doing, that's taking a person out of my office. And how long it takes for each dealership, we're not talking just the major dealership. We're talking all of
All
them.
over,
Yeah.
used cars.
Yeah, mom and pops and everybody.
Mom and pop gets those plates, those metal plates.
Mom and pop gets those money plates, they have to. They even wrote in the legislation that the mom and pop dealerships to hold a dealer license has to have internet connection. They are no longer, there's no more of, handwritten, they have to do internet connection and be able to conduct business online.
So if I get online and renew my registration, do we get the money?
Not all of it, no, it's less.
So it's less money.
It's less money to do it online. It costs you more to do it online, but we get less of that money.
Summer?
So you're gonna have a person going back and forth around town, all over places, how are they gonna get from point A to point B with that?
That's gonna be in our travel fund. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, a personal vehicle, a mileage, or?
that's the way we function right now. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't,
Trying to figure that part out.
yeah.
I'm not gonna get there.
There's a lot of these tax collectors that are buying vehicles.
But you didn't up your.
I didn't up I didn't up that for, yeah, no. I was
It's gonna
like,
be there.
yes, it will.
I'm gonna step in it since I'm leaving. Sorry, Jana.
Okay.
So my girls are watching. And again, they've seen the sheriff get their certificate raises, which nobody else in the county gets their certificate raises. They've seen all sorts of different things. How are they supposed to be valued as employees if they have work coming down on them every single day? New things, new regulations. How are they supposed to be valued as employees? They understand, they want the salary survey. So they're willing to pause, but then other departments get raises. And so I think Carol made the comment also, so I know this is across the board with a lot of employees that feel like it's a legislative year, they're getting slapped left and right with new things. How do they feel valued as employees of Scurry County? How does Melody's employees feel valued? Because you wouldn't give them another full-time position, they're taking on more work. How do we value our employees and not pick and choose what employees we raise up? There's my, since I'm leaving.
Do you have a chief deputy?
I do.
Do you have a chief deputy?
I do,
Already?
on, tax collection. Teresa is the chief deputy.
But you're
There-
kind of like in Trey's position where you've got something that's never been addressed on the totally different venue. Work thing. I mean, it's not, y'all cross-train, I know, but
Yeah,
they are
they're,
really separate.
yes, they're cross-trained as well.
But then you have
Yeah.
Melody who has some election worker.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
I, that's why I feel like this is my parting words. What y'all do in here affects 200 employees. Y'all are a large employer. Look at the big picture, and I'm not saying don't, but look at the big picture and how you're making some other employees feel when their staff is asking for an additional person or additional money, but you don't give it to them. Or you vote no on them, but then you vote yes on this one, and it's a very similar issue. It's, your employees are the basis. And there's a lot of employees right now who are feeling very unappreciated. And rightly so. Leroy, who's taken on all these extra duties, and I'm stating this, and he's probably like, I'm unappreciated too. It's difficult when you hear from the employees and they've taken on duties left and right, and they won't balk at anything. They will work till 9 p.m. at night just to make sure every employee is paid regular, but they don't get any additional income. They don't get, other than overtime, they don't get any other appreciation.
Yeah, it makes sense. That salary survey should have been done 5 years ago.
Well,
We're just looking-
it's a changing in climate, and I can honestly say, I am one of them that's leaving to go
inflation the way it is, money is a big player in decisions. I know some of y'all have road and bridge positions that have been open and have received applications, but the moment that they receive the salary amount, they back down on it. Salary is a big conversation right now. Not that I don't think that Jenna and Leroy need it. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying your employees are feeling unappreciated as a whole.
Well, you brought up inflation, and we agreed to do that last year. I'm hoping we're gonna do that.
But even
again.
at that 8.7%,
I mean, you're behind.
it's 2 years behind. Because that was the inflation 2 years ago that Social Security gave this last year, and we're not giving until 2024. But that doesn't increase or take into effect the fact that our jobs have changed. The job descriptions have changed. We've taken on additional duties, but not asked for additional pay to do those duties. We just take them on. And these are your legislatively responsible employees. You have to have them. And so that takes the consideration a little differently. You have to have these employees, and a lot of them don't translate into the private sector. So that's a benefit. They can't just get up and leave. But you don't want them to start looking.
I tell you, if you start losing employees, especially ones that you have trained, it's not good.
Well, I think
It is
EMS,
not good at all.
All that knowledge walking out the door.
Exactly.
in their budget meeting, EMS said it was 7, an additional, they put a number to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know there, but their EMS, whatever, put a number to, not only are you having that person leave, but that cost of training another person coming in. We don't wanna lose employees, but additionally, can we even get employees to replace the employees that we have lost?
Thank you.
Sorry, that's because I'm leaving.
I agree. I think that we need to show appreciation to our employees that are doing extra things. There are many departments that are doing that. This is the time to outline what those employees are doing more this year than they did last year because of the legislative session, like Jana did. So, you know, we all want our employees to have more because we know they're below what is out there. But we need to outline what are they doing extra this year that they were not doing last year or last biennium whenever the legislature was in session. So everybody needs to do that in their department so that we know. We can't make decisions because we know every department and what they do. You know, we need each head of department to come in and say, look, this is what we're doing now as opposed to what we were doing. And that gives us a better understanding of why, you know, we need to go up. One thing is just we're below market. And we stay below all the time. So we need to.
But not every department head equates it into monetary value. Melody has asked for an employee, that's how she equates her additional duties. It's y'all's job as Commissioners Court to identify those and to look at the bigger picture and to look at Scurry County as a whole. Cause when you have a department head that's in front of you asking for a raise, and then you give that, but then you don't think of how that affects another department or another employee who's also said, hey, I've done all this extra things. One, shame on them for not asking for a raise, but two, y'all didn't think of Scurry County as a whole. Y'all didn't think of the big picture. And then, how is salary increases sustainable? love to all get raises, but at the end of the day, we know we're dictated by our property taxes. So it's a balancing act. I'm not saying it has an issue or a clear, correct thing to do. But you had a room full of employees who are not very happy today because of one decision. Then you voted down another decision by asking her to do part-time. Value your employees.
I think the question there was, can you? And she said yes.
So,
Don't say yes. Say no. Who knows your department better than you do? And who knows what it's gonna take better than you do? Just you. And so if a part-time is gonna cause you to fail in your department, then that's not the right thing to do. That's why we come in here, we're talking about budget way before we set a tax rate. And then when we get all the information that we do not have and a 3.5% margin to do it with, then we start from there and start cutting back. Nobody wants to go through a rollback.
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Right?
I will say to something, because, I'm sorry, but it kind of, when you say shame on them, some people did not ask for increases for their employees because they are trying to keep their budgets. Because my girls were just as hard as her girls, or just as hard as everybody else, so I'm just gonna say that. But I don't wanna feel degraded because I didn't ask for a raise for them. I didn't ask for a raise because I also know the taxpayer side of this and the budget side. I believe that every employee here needs a raise, but some did not ask for raises, individual raises for their departments because of that reason. And also because of the attack that we will get, and if it gets cut back, like later when y'all do get the tax rate, and okay, gonna cut it and cut it. How hard is that when yeah, they're gonna do it, and then they cut it out? Like, it's kind of a slap in the face. And so, I mean, honestly, I don't have to ask y'all for a raise. I have to go to the district judge. I haven't gone up there to go speak to her for it, because I know where we stand. And I have done it in the past, and I got talked really bad about by doing it, because I try to take care of my people. And then I get slapped in the face, and I don't really appreciate that, but, I don't think anybody doesn't deserve a raise. I think every person deserves a raise. I think the salary survey is the way to go for doing that. And, I mean, I also think that when it comes down to the tax rate, no rollback, or you can't do that. But there's certain areas that the ground has to be stood.
Yeah, and you said something a minute ago that I completely agree with. Discussing that early, we're talking about a 3% raise or 5% raise, and then you come back later and it's 1% raise or something like that. I agree with that. I don't think that should be the very last thing that we discuss. Okay, we can do that. Let's do a whatever percent raise. So I agree with you there, because I've been in a position where, okay, we're getting that, and you don't. And it's very disheartening, you know. That's why I haven't brought, and won't bring that up until very end. Thank you.
That's just my thought.
Appreciate both your thoughts.
The fact is that the people that work for this county are as frugal as they get.
Right.
They are, always have been, ever since I've been here. There are so many people that said, we can cut those budgets 50,000. Every department can be cut 50,000, but whenever they learn, when they get here and get on this side of the table, they find out. I mean, I've had them look me right in the eye and say, I just thought it was good. I was wrong, I was told wrong. It's not possible. And it isn't.
Okay, we're coming up on 2 o'clock, so what do you wanna do about the chief judge?
actual income for the county.
Yeah.
Making sure it's all accounted for. We can't keep it, leave it on the table.
Discussion on that? Let's go ahead and go to jail and sheriff's department. Jail, food budget, we talked about that and brought it up 55,000, cause it looks like it's gonna end up short this year. Capital expenditures, went down 5,000. So, increase 50,000 at the jail. Sheriff's Department down 1,000 for victim information notification, down 449 for auto expense. And he is asking for 2 Tahoes with accessories, for, 41,945. The total actually is down in his budget 10,827 with those requests. For the Sheriff's Department.
Get 2 dollars.
That's what I was
What
wondering.
I want to know
Is that
is,
too
bed assistance. Through Sherwood,
Well, that's amazing.
and good trades on
And
the,
good trades.
excellent trades
Well,
on
it's in fact 100,000 miles.
That's with the accessories.
Sir?
That's with the
Yeah,
accessories.
what I put in there,
Yeah, lower.
everything, striping, lots, everything.
And if you'll notice, it didn't go, I mean, this is just a difference from what it was last year. So there is some accessory fees, but all told, that department is down 10,307 bucks. That was from last year. Any thoughts or questions or complaints on sheriff or jail?
Big rooms you got, keep it, besides the ones you arrest here.
Allen County,
Get the outside.
we're probably at, what, 40, 50, about 50?
Yeah.
Right now, out of county. Where we at, Angela, about halfway, we're on target to make our revenue for the year.
On June 30th, we were at 154,000, but I think just brought another check for another almost 15,000. So.
Good job, Sheriff.
Thank you.
We budgeted 300 this year.
You should get that, if you're, what you say,
We were at 154 June 30th, and we brought another almost 15,000 today.
halfway there.
And the cameras are in there, correct? Yes, sir. They're in, 560, I think 5720. Yeah, 560, 5720.
12,000.
That's the 12,000. That's for 4 flock cameras.
On that one, it's not showing it's showing the up or down, not necessarily the.
Yes, it's in there.
You'll see it's
So those cameras are getting like a park, will they do the same thing?
What are you able to do with?
Mine are LPRs, license plate readers, so I don't know, I think yours does it
We're
too.
getting some license plate readers. Now, it doesn't,
It doesn't integrate, that system doesn't integrate with, the PD has several of the flock cameras out right now, and those operate nationwide. So I can put a license plate in here, and if that vehicle passes a license, a flock camera in New York City, we get a hit on it, so, yeah.
Don't put my license plate in.
It also works with TCIC and NCIC where we enter one with people, so that if we have a vehicle that's primarily associated with them, that automatically uploads to those as well, for hit notifications. Stolen vehicles, if we enter a stolen vehicle and that plate's still on that vehicle, it also get a block hit as well.
I think since the PD's had them, they've recovered 3, maybe 4 stolen vehicles since they've had them.
Coming to our county.
that also catches those for, silver alerts.
Yeah, absolutely, endangered children and stuff, yeah, so, Amber Alerts, all that stuff.
I don't know if these do that, but if these are more catching our.
Right.
Local.
Right.
All right, anything else for Sheriff's deal? behind you back there. Yeah, his is, education and training is up 1,000 and down on 10,000 on capital expense, a total of 9,000 down. Some equipment is wanted for, this year, that he's not gonna need to purchase this year. Next year it's a one-time purchase, so his budget's down. Any questions for Jeremy on his?
Like they don't know how it works, really.
It's, yeah, something's wrong with it. I don't know. I hadn't.
We had training here last week, and I don't know,
Yeah.
something got moved to bump or.
So much money.
I appreciate him sitting in here for 4 hours. Alright, anything else? Alright, thank you all for hanging, staying with it. Hopefully the next meeting won't be so long, we won't put here as much on the agenda, but we had to get through a lot today. So,
What was it?